This episode is brought to you by Element Electrolytes. Now, Andrew, have you tried Element's new flavor?
I actually have not tried it yet. I'm excited. I want to try it because I hear nothing but good things. However, what has been your experience?
Dude, number one, I gave you 2 packs of it, so I'm kind of disappointed in you for not having tried it. So get that in your mouth today. But dude, oh my God. It's okay. So my former flavor, best flavor was orange. Before that, it was raspberry. Watermelon by far is my favorite flavor.
Really?
Like in my next purchase of Element, I'm getting nothing but watermelon boxes.
Heck yeah.
Make jokes, guys. But either way, it is so good. It tastes like Sour Patch Kids.
Oh,
but like not too sour where like you drink it and you're like, you do that thing. It's so good. Element, they killed it with this one.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check it out. Look, I have 2 right here. No joke. He did give me 2. If you guys want to take advantage of this, you guys can head over to drinklmnt.com/power project. Pick up a value bundle. That's buying 3 boxes and then you get a 4th one free. If you can be like, or you can be like Nsima, grab all 4 watermelon flavors, or you can get a variety of all the other ones. I've been having chocolate every single night. It's like my little before bedtime snack, and it keeps me hydrated throughout the entire night. Again, that's at drinklmnt.com/power project. Head over there right now.
Andrew and I did like 3 or 4 sets of it, and we got smoked.
Makes you wonder, so now, I guess we'll be able to pick between the hammer strength isolateral and then that one, but that one just feels better than the typical hammer strength.
I can breathe on it.
Oh, you can't breathe on the hammer strength?
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
The hammer strength kind of always bothers me too. Even when I was fat, I just never had enough protection on the rib cage. Always felt like it hurt doing any sort of rows like that. I needed more fluff in there, I guess.
So we're rolling now. I don't know. Do you want to add this as a part of the podcast?
What?
Or, yeah.
Rolling.
Yeah.
Add what?
Well, I guess we got to just inform people what we were talking about.
What were we talking about?
About the new machines.
McKean's. Machines.
We were?
Yeah.
The machinas.
Yo,
we got some new machines in the gym.
I was so pumped yesterday when I saw Sully unwrapping the machines. I was like,
oh, it's like Christmas.
I was so wet. It was crazy.
Smokey sent me a picture of the pec deck, and I was like, you're sending me pornography. He's like, not good to use on our regular. We need to use that for our burner phones only.
Yeah. Oh, God.
That's got to be is Snapchat still a thing where you send...
Snapchat's still a thing.
Yeah.
I never got into it that much, but Snapchat is still a thing. Yeah.
What do you mean a thing? A thing for what? A thing for what?
For nudes.
Yeah.
Really? That's what people out here acted like, oh, what's your Snapchat? Don't play. This is you're not just messaging me on Snapchat.
Yeah.
It's meant for nudes.
Yeah. I remember I heard a comedian saying that they would carry around 2 phones. This is early Snapchat days. Carry 1 phone for Snapchat, whatever, and then another phone to literally take a picture of the pictures that would come in.
My buddy in the UK does that shit.
That's incredible.
He has a second phone because Snapchat knows when you screenshot. It'll tell the person, so he'll have a second phone and he'll take pictures.
It'll tell you when you screen capture it.
Yeah, or when you video or when you're video recording.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but it's impossible to not capture an image of those nudes you just sent. But
That's amazing.
People out here risking it all, man, for some nudes.
Risking it all.
Dang.
But yeah, those machines are amazing.
Can't wait for the hack squat that's going to be coming in.
Yeah, we got a back.
Terrible.
We got 2 back pieces, right? Got 2 back pieces. Got a chest piece. I haven't tried the chest one out yet. And then I guess we have the pec deck and the rear delt thingy, which is great because it's always weird. I can never figure out rear delt stuff. I guess you don't really need to figure it out that much when you do rows and stuff, but it's hard to target them, and it feels good to target them. When you get a lot of blood in that area, it feels like it helps your whole shoulder somehow.
Yeah. What I love about so I saw the pec deck. I'm like, oh, sick, rear delts. But on that thing, you can adjust where the weight catches, kind of. So, and for me, out here is really hard to just even get going. But once you get going, it's okay, here we're good. So that one you can actually have it a little bit less in the beginning and then catch right away. And I really like that. It felt good.
What do you feel more personally, Andrew? Do you feel face pulls more, or do you feel the rear delt pec deck?
I can't figure out face pulls at all.
Interesting.
No.
Very interesting.
A lot of people have a hard time with face pulls, I think, because they don't have good like external rotation. And when you can't really rotate back, when you can only pull and your elbow is not able to get real high, then it's just not, it'll still work the rear delt a lot. But it's just not the same. You got to kind of, the way that I was taught how to do them at Westside was to kind of, and I learned it on the sled. You use a rope on a sled with handles. And then when you pull the handles, you pull towards your face. And then you pull up and back. And the way that Louis Simmons explained it to me, it was as if you were trying to throw a barbell backwards over your head. And so when we do the movement with the cables, we're just trying to practice the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense because when I would see everybody here at ST, kind of more here-ish or like elbows or whatever. And I was like, dude, all I feel is pain. Like it doesn't feel good. But when I was messing with it, couple weeks back, I was going up and then like way high. Like I thought I was doing them wrong.
Were you using that cloth attachment thing?
Yeah. The little bit more room to breathe. So when I was doing that felt pretty good, but I'm like, oh, this isn't how everybody else does it. So maybe I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. You end up making it look like a Cuban press is what it looks like.
Yeah.
Cuban press is with a barbell, and you have the barbell, you pull the barbell up in like an upright row fashion to like your belly button. And then you rotate or cuff it back up over your head and then kind of press it out.
Rotator.
Yeah.
Weird exercise, but an amazing one.
I have a massive bias towards it. I feel it the best.
The face pull?
Yeah. I have a massive bias towards that movement for the rear delts. There are better movements probably for the rear delts, but I love that one.
I think, what also matters in people feeling stuff is like when they have stuff. So it's hard to activate stuff when it's not there. You're like, oh, flex your calves. And someone's like, what?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, usually people know how to flex like their calves, usually their forearms, but then you start getting into like lats or traps, and then people start getting kind of confused on how to flex it. Even sometimes the chest, most people don't really know how to flex their chest. Biceps, I think people practice that one. So they kind of know how to do that, but you start getting into some other body parts, people are like, yeah. I remember when Chris Duffin was here, he had a lot of great control. He's like, you need to try to push out on your left oblique more. And I'm like, geez, I'm like this. And he's like, well, you just kind of pushed out your whole stomach. He's like, right in here, this spot. He's like, and that's where you're going to push against the belt. And then I was like, can you do that? He's like, oh yeah. And he pushed it out and like his stomach went lopsided. I was like, that is weird.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
It went lopsided?
Yeah, it went like poop. Like shifted shifted to one side. I was like, oh my God.
Sir, you should probably get that checked.
Yeah. He kind of has like a distended, he kind of has a distended belly, which is real like muscular. From those big ass squats and deadlifts and stuff that he's done.
Ball of muscle.
Yeah.
Chris Duffin.
That makes sense about not having anything there to flex. That would make sense because every time I've tried to work shoulders, I just work front delts. I can never really activate the rear, but with the pec deck,
over time you'll be able to do it.
Yeah,
eventually.
Maybe Dave Palumbo can tell us a thing or two about flexing.
A thing or two, huh?
I'm so excited about that.
Somebody did ask if you ever competed in bodybuilding, and I'm like, where you been? Yes. So did you get your pro card?
Yeah, I got my pro card in the INBA, the NGA, and the WNBF, and the only pro card I care about is the WNBF.
And that's the one that you got recently drug tested for?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. They're all natural organizations, but the WNBF, I think, is like they have the best shows, and they are the best when it comes to drug testing.
If you test negatively, is that positive?
If I test negative, yes. If I test negative, that is positive. That is positive.
Positive.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I competed a bunch in 2015 in a few pro shows, and I competed quite a bit in late 2013. Yeah. That's
really?
that.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Wow. You had the courage to stand on stage like that?
Yes.
Wow.
Hey, have you ever seen pictures for my first show? If you go if you go to the first photo on my Instagram, which is just scrolling way too deep, I think that's the cool thing about Instagram too. You can see how weak I was at a certain point. But yeah, those pictures from my first show, I was like, that shit was interesting.
Let's just see. But so then
most of what I've seen, you look pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But did you start out a lot?
Yeah, it's really hard to.
Did you start out like pretty small or something?
Why is that so funny?
Because you're in the bubble.
Can I get a hey now?
Yeah, I think. Oh, yeah. I think at that
when
show.
we pulled up stuff on here, you look pretty jacked to me.
Yeah, but that was 2015.
Okay.
2013, I think when I was stage lean, I wasn't as lean, but I was around the same weight. So I think I was still around 225 or 230 on stage, but I wasn't as lean as I was in 2015.
Did you compete as a teenager?
No. I started doing bodybuilding, competing. Let's see, 2000. I was like 19 or 20. I think that was my first show.
Oh, okay.
And then second show and all the other shows was when I was, first and second show was when I was that age. And then 2015, which was 2 years later, is when I did like 5 or 6 shows in that year.
Were you muscular in high school? I mean, I remember seeing older pictures of you, but
there'll be some older pictures and throwback pictures to high school there. But yeah, I was pretty big in high school.
Okay, I thought you were going to be like, no, I was a skinny guy.
I remember seeing pictures when you were pretty young and you kind of had like biceps and stuff.
Yeah, so 16, 18, 21, 23, and now I'm 28.
When did the hair start to go?
23. You see the receding hairline at 23.
I can see it. Yeah.
That's obviously when the trend began, everybody.
No,
it's not when the trend began.
I wasn't going to say
it's just that's what, yeah.
For some reason, you look like Tiger Woods in the 18 picture.
Really? Interesting. That's interesting. We are both black. So.
Well, no, he's...
When I was younger,
he's like when
I was in third grade.
What did you say it?
Blasian.
Blasian it was.
When I was in third grade, because my eyes are
by the way.
Yeah, because my eyes are the way they are, and my last name is Inyang.
That's the only non-jacked photo I can find of you.
Kids would be like, Nsima,
your shirt's baggy.
Yeah. Kids would be like, Nsima, is there anything mixed? And I tell kids I'm part Japanese because of Inyang, and they believe that shit. But
I would have.
Yeah. Anyway, kids did. But yeah, so the first show pictures there. But like that's why I think IG is interesting, because like that's when I first started posting videos, and you can like go through other people's too, and you can see like how their progression was, how they began. Like there's a video of me squatting like 275, and it is ugly. I look like a deer with like just
it's not going so well.
That's awesome.
So that's like, it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah, scrolling out, I just see nothing but jacked photos.
Nothing but jackness.
When you're powerlifting, I guess there's some plump ones, but you're still fucking jacked.
What, like 270 something?
I passed it a long time ago now, but
yeah,
that's funny.
When he was a big boy.
Mm-hmm.
I wish it's one thing that's one thing. If any of you guys are trying to, or you're going on a fitness journey or whatever, and you want to do something with it later, even if you're young, if you're like 15 or 16. Take videos and pictures of that shit so that by the time you're 25 and you've made a lot of progress, people can see like you when you sucked and when you were figuring it out, so that everybody knows that there is that stage.
Yeah, definitely take the pictures and videos that you don't want to take.
That is super important.
Those will be the most important. When you feel great to take a picture, your journey is kind of already over. You already kind of like went through it pretty well.
It's like Christian Guzman's that's why his whole thing's so sick, because he was like out here 15 or 16.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. He was a baby.
Dave Palumbo's been in the game for a long time. Doing stuff with muscular development back in the day. And I think you were mentioning that he did a ton of bodybuilding shows and never quite got the pro card. So that's really interesting. How do you stay motivated for long enough to continue to go after it? And then I wonder what he thinks the reasons are, like what held him back. Like was it the era that he was in and he just couldn't get big enough? Because I believe that's the time frame that he was around is when people started getting really, really big.
But he also was really, really big.
I know. He was fucking massive. He was massive too. Yeah, but the guys back then, they were starting to get out of control big. So I don't know. I don't know. They're still big today. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is with bodybuilding. They always say that it changes a lot, but it kind of seems pretty similar, except for when Arnold competed till now. That obviously some major differences there.
Yeah. For some reason, though, like, okay, so in the 90s, those physiques that were getting on stage as far as the NPC is concerned, like IFBB pros, when people say that they did look better, they did kind of look better. And you can't necessarily tell why, because it's not like, I feel like the physiques now are just bubblier, right? But they don't necessarily look as, I don't know, like Dexter Jackson would be a physique that would go really well back in the 90s, right? But yeah, it's just, they just looked better, and you can't tell why.
Yeah, I wonder
don't know what it is.
I wonder. Sometimes wonder if the body fat percentage was just a bit higher, and they just looked a little bit better. Like, I know some of the guys, like when they would just like kind of bulk, like they wouldn't bulk. They would still stay pretty lean.
Yeah,
they would gain a little bit of weight and stuff, but like those old pictures, like Mike Menser and some of those guys, they just look powerful. Like, he's obviously incredibly lean, but you don't even really think about that. It's like it's kind of an afterthought. You're just like, man, his arms look awesome. His chest is massive and his waist is small, but you're not really thinking about how fit and how shredded he is. And I'm sure if he flexed his quads or something, he'd probably have some striations in him and things like that. But I mean, he's probably, in some of those pictures, probably like 8 or 10% body fat.
Yeah.
Which is not high by any means, but maybe higher than what we see from some of the guys today. They get on stage and they're pretty peeled up.
And it's like, I think another physique that it reminds me of, at least nowadays, is like Cedric Mcmillan. Cedric Mcmillan is a physique that would have done really well back then. And he looks great now, but for some, like, he just doesn't get to win as much, because I don't think he's as big as some of the mass monsters that are competing currently, even though he has like the craziest shape to his physique. So
I think people get too, like, it's a weird way to say it, but almost too like blocky or bulky.
Yes.
Puffy. And then, and maybe a lot of that has to do with the drugs. You know, people use, quite a bit of drugs. I think the drugs back in the day, I mean, everyone always kind of says this, but I think they were literally like a little bit of an add-on, and people were like, hey, just take a little bit of this. And I think that a lot of those guys looked pretty damn good before they ever really touched any of that stuff. They had their diet intact. I think nowadays, with all the convenient, junk food that's out there and things like that, they're probably also coming from a different place, coming from a different spot. Like Arnold was pretty much always jacked.
Yeah.
From the time, I mean, you go back to when he's like 15, 16, he looked pretty damn good. And then I think he won some pretty big competitions at a young age and stuff like that too.
Do you guys think that this is partially why like the physique guys got so popular? Just because,
and classic physique.
When I look at the guys on stage, I want to look like those guys. And I'm not saying any of them are obtainable for me. Like, I'm not saying like, oh, I don't want to look like Mr. Olympia. It's like, well, I can't, and I know that. But as far as like, yeah, no, I'd rather look like some of the physique guys than just being so fucking huge.
Yeah. I mean, okay, let's just be real. It is really dope, like bodybuilding and those physiques, but it's quite uncomfortable too. I mean, if we're just taking about the reality of just walking around, right? I mean, but it's still something to be marveled at. It's still something that's cool. I get what you're saying though. That's why more people compete in men's physique, because more people can actually attain those physiques realistically. And it's like, it doesn't take as much. Bodybuilding takes more work, like more work putting on all that muscle than it does for men's physique, and probably more substances.
I think maybe the mistake that people might make is they think that they need to be in this like massive caloric surplus in order to gain size, and I could see an argument that you might need a little extra energy, and you certainly don't want to have too little energy. But I think that the mistake is made when you think that you need an extra 1,000 or 2,000 calories. I mean, maybe it's kind of worked for some guys, but then they also need to take growth hormone and insulin, and like it causes like this other cascade of things. I think even if the natural guys are to try that, I think they're going to get too puffy and too bulky. So
yeah,
it's not an easy thing to figure out. But to your point, Andrew, with some of those physique competitors, I believe that those guys probably come from a similar place that the old school bodybuilders came from. And that's a place of most likely being kind of on the thinner side and not ever really getting to be fat without ever really, and even within their career, like some bodybuilders would get fat in their career. And I think that I think that shit's kind of permanent. I think that kind of sits around. I think it ends up being part of your physique in some way. I don't think you can like burn it all off and just, I don't think you can look the same. Most of the bodybuilders that I've ever known, they're usually fairly thin or started fairly thin, and they're able to add on to that. I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but that's a lot of what I think it's really rare for a bodybuilder to be like, yeah, man, I used to be a total fat kid. I haven't really come across it much. I know John Anderson mentioned that he was a fat kid, but John Anderson is also a fairly blocky powerlifter or a bodybuilder rather. He did have some good success in bodybuilding, but it's just rare. It's really rare from what I've seen.
Yeah, and that's also why like classic physique is so much more popular too, just because it's like you don't have to get as big as bodybuilding, and it looks more like it's just honestly looks more pleasing to most people too. I think women would be more into it, right? Women would be like, hey, that guy looks awesome. And in bodybuilding, I think sometimes women are like, that's not attractive. That doesn't look cool. Yeah. I mean, let's be real. Like, it's funny. A lot of people that start like lifting, it's kind of like a meme at this point, but you know, you think that you're going to be getting all this attention from women, and it's just,
it's all dudes.
It's all dudes. It's all dudes. But, yeah, bodybuilding is very, very interesting these days. And that's something that's really interesting about the sport, because it's, you know, Dave Palumbo doesn't compete anymore, but he talks a lot about it. He does train, but it makes me think it's like basketball. You could play that for a long time. Even when you're old, you could like play pickup basketball, but bodybuilding, you know, that's something that you do, and there are like, you know, there are masters and stuff, but at that point it's like, I don't know. It's not like a normal sport. Even powerlifting, you could do that for a hot minute and still, you know, but bodybuilding, it's like at a certain point, it seems like you might just,
I mean, there's like, run out of gas, we'll just say, you know, like with just aging, you know, shit happens. But I think it's other factors like when you're young in your 20s, you have one person to take, you know, responsibility for, you know, you have yourself. Then all of a sudden you get older and masters, and it's like, oh shit, you got a wife, you got kids, you got other people that depend on you. And I think that, to me, I think that's what, you know, might get people to be like, you know what, yeah, I'll probably step away from, you know, this shit right now.
And do you mean like the one where like you're actually on gas?
No, I just meant like testosterone, hormone levels and stuff like that. Just getting older. But I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Looks like we got Dave ready to go too.
He has the legendary Pop-Tarts.
Oh yeah.
My man.
He's got all of them.
My man.
Stack them all up on top of each other and just eat them straight.
So
the more you eat them, the better they are, actually.
And
they're fucking really good, man. At first I was like, these aren't that good, because I thought it was more like a Pop-Tart. And then I also forgot that Pop-Tarts aren't that good anyway. Like Pop-Tarts, like, I don't know. We have a weird memory, right? We think they're legit, but they sucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, the legendary tasty pastries are awesome. I just had to kind of reframe my mind and understand that it's not really like a Pop-Tart.
So do you warm them up or no?
No, I just eat them usually.
But I did a really fat thing yesterday. It was great though. New discovery. Had to run home. Didn't have time to eat here. Just too much going on yesterday. So on my way home, I drank one of those like Fairlife protein shakes with the cookies and cream tasty pastry.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm going to have one, then have the other. And then like I took a bite and then I took a drink.
Oh, dude, I've been dipping it in there. Yeah, so I've been dipping it.
The whole way home, I would take a bite and I take a drink and I just sit there in traffic with both in my, you know, it almost sounded bad, but it was like I was dipping it in the chocolate milk.
That sounds good.
It was
Fairlife protein shake.
Good.
They make protein shakes.
Oh, dude,
Oh, that's
30 grams of protein and only like 4 grams of carbs, like too fat.
Did you get this at like a gas station? I need to buy that.
You can get them kind of just about anywhere, but not anywhere, but you can get them in a lot of places.
They have the core power, which is really good, but they also just make like a regular protein shake that you can get at Costco.
They taste really good. Tastes like chocolate milk.
Really fucking good.
Which one does? Costco.
What's up, buddy? Yeah, we were talking about some of those. I don't know if you've seen these at the gas station, but there's core power, like Fairlife protein drinks.
Yeah, I haven't tried them.
Yeah,
I'll tell you which ones my wife loves. Have you tried the Jack Oaks, the Bang ones?
I have not. No.
Bang makes these like coffee flavored. They have caffeine in them, but they're like protein shakes. They're really good.
I've seen that. Yeah, the keto. It's a keto.
And there's like whey isolate in there. There's no like lactose in them. They're really good.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job with those.
Remember how bad the protein shakes and stuff used to be?
Oh, horrendous.
Remember the old Metrex would like break your blender. I remember my blender was literally smoking trying to blend that shit up.
But you know what? Even though there was no whey isolate back then, they didn't use pure whey. They used egg, whey, and casein. Those things didn't bother my stomach. I didn't get the poops from those things. Even though if you left that stuff in a shaker bottle overnight, remember the rancid smell? You'd almost had to throw the shaker bottle out there. It was so terrible. I'd leave them in my trunk because I would personally train people, and they would be so disgusting. The smell would be. It was like, how can such a shake that tastes so good turn into this in like 5 hours? Right?
Dave, how'd you get started in bodybuilding, and how long ago did you get started in bodybuilding?
I started. I was doing a little working out in high school, believe it or not, just to get stronger. I remember a couple of the kids said, if you worked out, I could tell you'd look good. You got like a big chest, and so I started doing. I was doing push-ups and stuff like that because my dad always did that kind of stuff, and I started weight training, and I was always so lean that, if you put on 5 pounds of muscle and you have no body fat, it looks like 20 pounds of muscle. So, I got a lot of attention because I was very veiny and stuff like that. So kids think that's cool, like in high school and stuff like that. So I got into that. And then when I went to college, I was a long distance runner, and the coaches were like, "You're too big." And I wasn't really big. I was like 165 pounds, They're like, "You're too big." And so they made me they gave me like anorexic complex. Because, when you're running long distance, if you're carrying around 15 pounds of muscle, that's extra weight on your back. It's going to slow you down. So I basically starved off down. I almost starved myself down to about 140 pounds. And it did make me faster, but I was really, I looked really skinny. So when I decided that my running career was over at the end of college, I said, I'm never going to get a date. So I started working out again. And, that's when I really got into I went from starving myself to now everything I ate, because I ate clean, turned to muscle. It was like, there was no limiting factor. It was like, as much food as I can get down my body, that's how much muscle I built. It was like I didn't know anything about steroids, but I looking back, it was like I was on steroids because my body just wanted to grow. So I had to build up from eating like twice a day to like eating 6 times a day. And, I was doing those Joe Weider shakes, that would destroy your stomach. But, back then, when you're a kid, you can actually drink milk and it doesn't really affect you that badly.
Where'd you learn some of this stuff from? Like, where'd you learn a little bit of bodybuilding from and the eating and stuff? Magazines, maybe?
The magazines, yeah. I mean, I was like, I bought the Kool-Aid, that Joe Weider was feeding me, and that was just because I didn't know nothing. But but you know what? I remember I was in college. It was my last year. I was pre-med. I was, had a biology major. I was taking genetics class. I was able to take what I was reading and I kind of interpret it how. In a way that was filtering out a lot of the garbage because I knew what made sense physiologically speaking. And so I started doing, pretty much, I realized that protein was the key. That was the missing ingredient. Whereas with running, it's all carbohydrates. You don't even worry about protein. It's funny. I thought I wasn't eating a lot of protein when I was running, but I was drinking like a half a gallon of milk a day. And you know how much. And you remember, I don't know if you remember, back in the 80s, they actually had, they had come out with something called Skim Milk Plus. And it was like concentrated skim milk. They just put more protein. They basically put powdered skim milk in the skim milk. Wow. And it started in Pennsylvania, which is where I was in school. And so I used to drink a half a gallon every day of that stuff. It was probably like, 200 grams of protein in there at least.
Damn, bring it back.
That's a lot. But you know what? At the night, my stomach would look like an Ethiopian kid. Before I went to bed. Remember those little Ethiopians they show on National Geographic with the balloon bellies? That's how I looked before I went to bed. And then I would pee all night long. I would get up every 2 hours and pee. By the morning, my stomach was flat again. It was crazy.
You got Nsima pretty good over here.
Yeah, that's what I'm laughing at.
Shit.
What?
Oh fuck. Yo. So
Were you that kid in National Geographic?
no, stop it, man! Stop it!
I thought.
God damn it!
He's like, that's me. I was that kid in National Geographic.
Yeah. I don't know.
Fuck. So how big? How much weight did you gain? So you went from 140 to what before you decided that you wanted to start like competing in bodybuilding, and before like you started taking your first substances and stuff like that?
Gotcha. So when I was 140 in 1988. I started maybe 88, and I started working out, and I went to about 180, which was, I gained 40 pounds in the first year.
Woo.
But I probably 20 of that probably was just restoring what I normally, you know what I mean? It's like muscle memory.
Yeah.
Like I went back to my high school weight really quickly, you know, because I started eating and I wasn't starving myself all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, when I was a long distance runner, I was running 10 miles a day. So I was really, you know, pushing my body very hard. So but you know, and then what happens, I started working out like I used to run. I was working out for 2.5, 3 hours a day. You know how that goes when you first start. So I was making a lot of mistakes, but I was growing anyway, despite that, because I was eating a lot of food, and I just had to stop. And I was addicted to running. So I had to like wean myself off it. I didn't just stop running immediately. I had to go down to 5 miles a day, 2.5 miles a day. And I was on 2.5 miles a day for a long time. And then I finally realized the less I ran, the bigger I got. So when I graduated college in 1990, I had decided I was going to do a bodybuilding show because there was a kid in the gym doing one. So I graduated in May of 90. And then in like June, I did my first show, The Natural, New York City. So I had gotten up to, I think, like 185 pounds. And then I dieted down to like 176. But actually, for the middleweight class, I think I got down to 168.
Whoa.
So I went from like a lean 140 to I gained 28 pounds of muscle, you know, in that year and a half that I had. And that was all natural, you know, it was just from me training and eating and stuff like that. Of course, at almost 5'11", being 168 pounds on stage is probably not going to cut it in terms of winning. So I didn't even place top 5. I think it was 6th place. And that was back when the shows were really competitive. But it was a natural show, drug tested and everything, supposedly a polygraph test or whatever. And all the guys in the middleweight class were like, man, you're pretty ripped, but you need more muscle, you know? So I had striated glutes, but I was really like thin on the thin side. So I said to myself, I'm not competing again until I have enough muscle that I think that I could at least, you know, look respectable in my own mind. So I started training, and I did one more natural show in 1992. And I was 200 pounds. So just about, I think I even made 198 at one of the Jersey shows. So I was about 198, 200. So that was another, you know, 35 pounds of muscle I gained in those 2 years. Yeah. And then I decided I was going to, you know, I was going to switch over to the dark side and start using some stuff. And then I competed in 94 at 228. So I gained another 30 pounds of muscle almost in those 2 years.
Would you say that you're someone who gains muscle
this time on gear? Do you
gain muscle easily? Because like those are like that. That's a lot of muscle.
No, I had to eat a ridiculously enormous amount of food, to be honest with you. But I guess maybe I did because I grew. You know, my body responded. But you know what? I was a neurotic. I did everything. There was no mistakes made. Like I didn't miss workouts. I never missed a meal. I never missed sleeping and resting. You know. I was like, I knew more about anabolic steroids before I ever took a shot than probably the rest of the world knew, because I researched it. I read that Bill Phillips anabolic reference guide 600 times. You know, I was like, I knew it. I had the whole thing in my mind plotted out what I was doing, even though I hadn't done it yet, you know, and I don't think anyone else knew that I knew what I was doing. But once I got to 94, people started asking me questions like, because people realized this guy gained like, you know, a ridiculous amount of muscle in the last couple of years. And then people wanted to know what I was doing. And it was just really applied consistency. That's what I always say, you know, obviously. Then I gained another 30 pounds over the next year in 90. So from 94 to 95, when I won the junior nationals at the heavyweight class, I gained another 30 pounds. So then I was up to 258. And then I gained another 10 pounds the following year to 268. And that was pretty much where I kind of that was that wasn't my heaviest contest weight, but that was probably a comfortable weight for me. I did get as heavy as 280. I competed once. The fans loved it, but the judges didn't, because it wasn't as an aesthetic look as maybe I needed to be. So my sweet spot was like around that 265, 268, range. But it took me 5 years to gain 100 pounds of muscle. That's pretty much what I tell people,
With anabolic steroids, I think that maybe people think that that once you start to take them, that it gives you results like in perpetuity, like it gives you results kind of forever. And I'm not even talking yet necessarily about coming off of them, but just while you're on them, you get to play that card one time. It's kind of like when you first start training, you can play the card of like, oh, I'm going to eat a lot. I'm going to eat 6 times a day, and that's going to help get me big. That's one card that you can play, and that doesn't work forever. Just eating more doesn't always work, because at a certain point you might start to get fatter. But a similar thing happens with steroids. Like, you play that card, you gain your 20 pounds, and sometimes it gets to be really difficult. It seems like you were able to expand that a little bit, and you were able to gain 50 pounds, 60 pounds, but maybe that was just because you weren't done growing naturally as well. Like, what are some of your thoughts about, a lot of people are on the fence about taking steroids. Like, what is your experience with them? Like, did they really get you some of the results that you were looking for?
Well, I think it's important to mention that I did train naturally for like 4 or 5 years, and I really tapped out. I couldn't gain any more weight. There was no more food I could eat. Like, my body just wasn't growing anymore. So that's the reason I got a little frustrated. And people were accusing me of taking steroids anyway. Now, I might have been on steroids because I was taking that. Remember the old hot stuff?
Right.
Stuff
had like the Anabol in it or whatever. Yeah.
So that's what they said. Who knows? I definitely grew from taking that. So I don't know if there was steroids in there or not. But people thought I was on steroids. I'm like, you know what? This is ridiculous. Who cares? I don't care. I want to compete with the best. I don't care if anyone wants to let them stereotype me as much as they want, because I knew a lot of guys taking steroids that looked terrible. So I decided to start taking them. I started, with very mild cycles, but my body responded really, really well to them. And, I have this theory. I just do. I mean, I was running long distance for 5 years straight, never taking a day off, sometimes at certain points, 10 miles a day or more. I really think I changed like my metabolism permanently from that, because I think what happens is with distance and endurance type athletes, the muscle doesn't get bigger. We know it doesn't hypertrophy, but it gets more oxygen efficient. And I think it does. The way it does that is that it creates more mitochondria. And when you create more mitochondria, which are, and when you create more nuclei, which would be, I guess, the process of hyperplasia, you don't necessarily see a size increase, but you see an efficiency increase. Now, when you actually try to make the muscles get bigger via hypertrophy training, which would be heavy weights, obviously lower repetitions, it's like you have more genetic potential than you did before. So I created more cells and more mitochondria. So I actually souped up my body's genetics before I started bodybuilding. And then I started bodybuilding on top of that. And I think that's why I grew so fast, because I had all this new tissue there, and I had all these mitochondria, which would make obviously oxidizing fat more efficient in my body, which was perfect for running, right? Because you want to be able to produce a lot of ATP quickly. And so I think I actually, altered my metabolism. I think if I hadn't done the running first, even though it sounds nuts, I don't think I would have been as successful as a bodybuilder and looked as freaky as I did. So whatever, I always believe things happen the way they're supposed to. And so whatever the chain of events were, I noticed that. But I will say this about anabolics. I responded to lower dose stuff really, really well, but I noticed that I didn't necessarily get the density and thickness. Now, you were always a very strong guy, Mark, but I was not strong, in the sense that I had good strength in terms of like maneuverability and stuff like that. But I wasn't like a guy who could go into the gym when he was in high school and bench press, 225 or 315 or 405, like some of these guys I have heard. So my strength came from the bigger I got. So as I got bigger, I just got stronger. So eventually I was inclining 405 and I was squatting, 700 pounds, and I was deadlifting, 650. But I didn't start out like that. It was because I got the 300 pounds of muscle that enabled me to get that strong. And so the progressive overload that I was constantly subjecting my body to, along with the food and the drugs and the consistency of applying it, and never messing up, I think just resulted in me building the physique that I did. I think it was all together. And I always tell people the secret to being a great bodybuilder is the boring, consistent applying of the same principles over and over and over again, and never getting bored, never getting distracted, never giving up. And that sometimes some people can call that insanity, but that's really the secret to success in bodybuilding.
So I'm curious, like, for a lot of bodybuilders that are going at it, that they're trying, because when you look at pictures of your physique, anybody would assume that's an IFBB pro physique. That was my assumption. But then when you see like how much you competed, but you didn't manage to get the pro card, even though you obviously had a pro level physique, like what is it that first off,
I told you not to bring this up.
I'm sorry, but
no, it's good. I'll talk about anything. I don't care.
But like, first off, like, what do you think it was that had you continuously getting the runner up, even though that doesn't really make that much sense?
I now that I'm not competing, I always look at my physique and I want to throw up sometimes when I see pictures of myself, certain ones. And some of the pictures, I'm like, wow, I look really good there. So I definitely had what it took to be an IFBB pro. There was no doubt about that. I mean, we've seen some pretty horrible physiques turn pro. So I definitely had what it took to turn pro. There's no doubt. I don't think anyone would deny that. There was, first of all, in the 90s, it was harder to get a pro card because they didn't give that many out. And so it was a very politically driven type of situation. In other words, depending on who you were with, what supplement company you were with, what because they only gave out so many pro cards. And on top of that, there was a hierarchy of like whose hand you had to shake and who you knew and who you didn't maybe piss off and I was very naive to this. I wish I had someone like myself now advising me then. I was of the belief, maybe because I was raised by my father was an educator and I was in this like ivory tower my whole career in college. I didn't really have a lot of street smarts. I thought that you were rewarded on merit. And I didn't think of the fact that, bodybuilding is not a sport where you can actually, whoever crosses the finish line wins first, whether the guy's a dick or not, It's a like, whose hand do you shake and type of thing. And I didn't get involved in the politics and I should have a little bit more looking back. Because I'm sure I was around all the right people. I just didn't bother to even get involved with that. And it worked against me, I think. And I think maybe it was I don't know, maybe it was construed as I was arrogant. I don't know. And maybe, I wasn't rewarded for that. That's the only way I can look at it. And I think later, when I did become friends with everyone in the whole industry, because I started covering the shows and representing companies and doing guest posing with all the promoters, it was like too late already. I had stopped already and I was at the end of my career. So I didn't play the political game. I should have. I didn't have anyone advising me. And when I finally realized that, I think that it was, like I said, it was too late. Now, it's the reason I mention this is because it is important if you're a bodybuilder and you're coming up to hobnob in the right circle, so to speak, and respect the right people, because it is a beauty pageant. It is a subjective sport. It's really whatever people want. There's no way to say, you know what, even though you don't like me, it's too bad. I'm the best football player on the field, that kind of thing.
You think it's as political right now as it was in the 90s?
Maybe, but at the top echelon, but it doesn't matter because there's so many opportunities to get a pro card now. Pretty much anyone can get a pro, right? I mean, you go to Masters Nationals and they give out 600 pro cards for the weekend. So, I mean, if you have a good physique, you're probably going to win eventually. There's enough opportunities that, and you know what the reason is? And a lot of people think, well, the talent pool isn't as good as it was back in the 90s. It really is. It might be better. It's just that guys turn pro too quickly nowadays, so you don't see it. Back then, the guys who were in the top 5 of the super heavy, the heavyweight class, all of them were going to become pros. It was just a matter of which year, because they only gave out one card per class, and then one overall. So it just took a long time. So a lot of the guys were just pros in the waiting. So the amateur top shows, when we would watch nationals in USA, we loved it because you were watching a pro show, basically. Nowadays, the talents, they drain the amateur ranks so quickly that you don't really have time for some of these amateurs to get super good. And that's why a lot of these amateurs have a tough time competing in the pros, and they got to actually take a year or two off before they actually are ready,
Yeah.
How did you kind of have the courage to bodybuild? Like, because a lot of times if I feel like with some of these sports, like I've always been a huge pro wrestling fan, and when I was a pro wrestler, I felt like I always had to defend it. When I got into powerlifting, it was kind of the same thing. It's like this niche thing, especially back when I was doing it. Like no one cared about it. It wasn't soccer, it wasn't football, it wasn't baseball, it wasn't any of the big sports, and it wasn't a popular big thing. Bodybuilding's always looked at as being weird. You're carrying around your Tupperware. One moment you're super shredded and people can see veins in your face, and the next moment you're fat and bloated and people are like, I thought you were a bodybuilder. Why? So how did you deal with like a lot of the criticism? Because back when you started, there was even less people involved in fitness.
Right. You know, I never really looked very sloppy in the off season. I was always like a freaky looking like off season bodybuilder. So, and I think I must have loved the attention, you know, walking through the shopping malls and stuff like that in the supermarket with my tank top and shorts on at, you know, 300 pounds. And people were like, holy shit. My ex at the time, she used to walk behind. She would always walk like 3 steps behind me and listen to what people were saying. I walked with blinders. I didn't care what anyone said. You always get those guys who go steroids, you know, and then she'd be like, fuck you. And she'd start arguing with them. I'm like, would you just leave these idiots alone? I said, you know, you're going to get me into fights with people now, you know, over this. Just, I don't care what people think, you know, but I just never worried. My whole life, really, I've never really worried about what other people think about me. I just kind of do what I love, you know, and what I like and what I'm kind of passionate about. I guess it's like the artist in me, you know, as long as it gives me pleasure, I really don't care what anyone else thinks. You know, there are a couple people that irritate me here and there along the way, but, you know, now with social media, you can kind of go online and you call them out, you know. So I don't think we owe anyone an explanation. I think if you want to, back in the 90s, you know, bodybuilding, like you said, wasn't maybe that widely acceptable, but people kind of were interested about it because every person out there wants to change the way they look. Okay. Especially if they're not in shape. And bodybuilders are the greatest magicians of all time when it comes to changing their physiques, right? So a lot of the regular people, even though they may not want to look like us bodybuilders, they want to look different and they want to get lean. And so I found that a lot of average people were coming to me for advice. And, you know, like you said, they would say, well, I don't want to look like you, but, you know, I definitely want to lose body fat and my blood work is off and this and that. And so that I really kind of embraced that right from the early part of my bodybuilding career, giving people advice. And I did it for free. You know, there was no charging. I used to go on these forums and answer questions. And I had tons of people always in and out of my house, you know, asking me what the latest and greatest, you know, protein powders are and, you know, how I should use them and, you know, what they should use for fat burners and how they should diet. And so I was dieting people, you know, before there was even diet guru coaches. You know, I was just doing it for my friends and the guys in the gym just because they gave me pleasure. We'd go to the shows together. I'd help them, you know, I'd be backstage oiling them up and tanning them and all that stuff. And so for me, it was always like an information thing. So I think people respected me in the sense that, hey, you know, that guy is a big freak, but he's also very, you know, he's also really smart. And so I kind of got that, like created that little niche for myself.
In your own experience, what's true and false about anabolic steroids, both positives and negatives? Like what are some positive results that you really like thought were great and now you're not on them anymore, so maybe you don't get to maybe you wish you were, but you know, what are some of the positive and negatives and what's true and what's false about them in your opinion?
You definitely feel invincible on them. There's no doubt about that. You recover faster, you feel stronger. I mean, injuries heal quickly. There's no comparison. I mean, obviously sex drive is through the roof. You know, you feel like Superman on them, and that's the danger part of it because you can think that it's like a drug addict chasing a high. You can, if you're not smart, you can try to keep getting that. You can think more is better. I think, and a lot of people fall into that trap. I never felt that. I never really fell into that trap because I always found that when I went a little too high in dosage, I didn't feel good. Like I knew I was very attuned to my body. So I found the sweet spot for me, which was about 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week combined with, you know, some anabolics, you know, 1 or 2 compounds. And then I really loved growth hormone. I had a really good connection for growth hormone even early on in my career because I had a doctor friend who was getting it from the hospital. And so I wasn't using a lot, you know, I was using 2 IUs, but I was using it like back in 1995, you know, So a lot of guys didn't start using it until the late 90s because they didn't have access to it or they didn't have, the money for it. So I found that small incremental dosages consistently used you couldn't beat the recovery rate. And I felt like it definitely enhanced the way the anabolics worked. I got better results. I stayed leaner. The pumps were insane on it. So for me, I always liked the long acting injectables with growth hormone. And then I found at some point, not through the right channels, but I found that I was very insulin resistant on GH. And I probably didn't produce a lot of insulin anyway, because I was very lean all the time. And so I started experimenting with insulin around the time Milos. So Milos and I actually had a conversation in 1996 when we were in Dubai together about insulin. We had both just started experimenting with it. And like short acting, fast acting insulin like Humulin R, which was available readily without a prescription at most US pharmacies. And I found that I was growing better on. I wasn't using a lot. I was using like 10 IUs in the morning and 8 IUs like about 5-6 hours later. And I found that I was responding better with that. Without that, I found, and I was very like flat all the time. Growth hormone would not allow me to like really fill my muscles up. And probably I wasn't producing, with the amount of food I was eating, I probably wasn't producing enough insulin. And so no one used blood sugar monitors then because there were none that were readily available. Like you can go now and buy one for $10 at Walmart. They didn't have them. They were like hundreds of dollars and no one thought to use them, but I was using trial and error. So I developed a bunch of insulin protocols that I was using that seemed to work really well for me. And that was really pushing I started gaining a lot. I noticed a lot of gains when I started adding that in small amounts. But I mean, to answer your question, anabolics make you better. They make you stronger. They make you faster, no pun intended. And if you use them responsibly, I find that they don't have a lot of side effects. Now, I had my gynecomastia taken out. Obviously, that was one of the initial side effects I got from my first shot of testosterone. I had some bad acne. I always was prone to acne. I'm a greasy Italian. And so when I took them, I started getting a lot of those like big, like red, like boils. It wasn't like scarring acne, but it was like really uncomfortable acne. Yeah. So I did do Accutane to get rid of that. Those were probably my two biggest side effects, I would say, that I had. Other than that, the typical fluid retention probably. But I never was a big oral guy because when I would take Anadrol or Dianabol, I never lasted more than like 2-3 weeks on it because I couldn't eat on it. So I never really took the toxic, anabolics because my body just didn't jive well with them. So that probably saved me. I think, but once again, I think what people do is they get carried away and they think that the anabolics are what's building the muscle, not the food in the training, which we know is not true. It is the food in the training. The anabolics kind of just give you that little extra push, and they start downing, 3 Anadrols a day and 10 Dianabol pills a day, and then they're taking 3,000 milligrams testosterone a week, and they look like shit. And they can't figure out why. They can't eat, and they're drinking every single meal because they have no appetite. And so there is a diminishing returns. You have to be smart about how you lay out what you do. And I think that I had a really good balanced approach to it and a smart approach to it. And back then, no one thought to use ridiculously high dosages, at least in the initial part of my career. I don't think if you told anyone you were taking more than 4 IUs of GH, they'd be like, why? No one would even do that. It was too expensive, and no one even thought to do that. I remember when I helped Kevin Levrone back in 96 for the Arnold when he won, he was using 4 IUs of GH a day, and he only did it for like, 8 or 10 weeks. I mean, and no one thought to do any more than that. That's just the way it was. And I think guys today might get a little more carried away with the anabolics. And once again, it's all about balance. So when you throw the balance off, you have problems.
It sounds to me like one of the major negatives is just that you're going to need to know a lot, and there's a lot of young people out there that are just kind of starting their lifting journey, and maybe they go to the gym for a couple months and they feel like they're stuck. And then they kind of find out that other people, use these performance enhancing drugs, and they hop on them. And what I always just caution people is that it can be, it's not necessarily a gateway into other drugs, but a lot of times it's into other performance enhancing drugs. So it's just it can be a slippery slope, and you can be like just really in it, and you can end up kind of, going down the career path that you chose, which is all stuff that interested you, that you liked, that you really went after. But it sounds like, for people that are young or people that aren't knowledgeable about this topic. It's like, man, it would be great for you to have a really good understanding, do the best you can to find out as much information as you can before you ever inject any of these things. I'm in very much agreement with you, like where I think that, some testosterone, I don't think really causes much harm. But the harm that it does cause is it does make you feel invincible. It does make you feel great. And so now you're kind of trapped inside of that. If you already like fitness, if you already like lifting, if you already like powerlifting, and you already like physique transformation, you're going to like it that much more when you get a taste of what steroids can do for you. And then you're kind of trapped in there because then what do you do? Like, when you come off stuff, and in your opinion, now that you've been off stuff for a while, are you able to keep any of the gains that you got from? Because I think some people are like, I'm going to do a cycle or two. I'm going to gain a little size. I'm going to hold on to that for 10, 20 years. What are some of your thoughts on something like that?
Chris, if I started eating 6 times a day and I started training at a gym, I train at my house because, I got 3 kids and because of COVID, and I wanted to put more muscle on, I know I could probably go up 20, 30 pounds easily. I don't want to. My blood pressure is good at this weight. I feel good. I'm 53 years old. I don't need to weigh 230 pounds. 190 is fine for me. I feel comfortable at this weight. So I keep myself at this weight. I'm shredded though. I have striated glutes. I have no body fat on me. If you saw me without a shirt, what?
Show us. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm
striated
I'm not big, too. But I'm lean. I have striated glutes. I'm very lean. And so I'm comfortable. So like, if I want to go to the beach and take my shirt off, I feel good. I'm not big, like I used to be, but I don't have to prove anything. So I think that you have to find something that you're comfortable with. Now, look, I'm not against HRT at all, because you know what? If I had low testosterone, believe me, I'd be the first guy back on HRT. For some reason, after doing 5 years of having kids with my wife and HCG every day almost, my body turned itself back on to enough of a degree that I feel good and I have good energy. And you remember, I had my thyroid removed, 2 months ago, and I'm on replacement, and I feel good too, even on that. So my body's in a good zone in terms of energy level, and I'm not depressed. And so why mess with it? But if my levels dropped at some point and I stopped feeling good and I went for testing and I was low, I would be right back on HRT. I'm not against it. I'm completely for it. I think it's great for people who are older. But what I found is a lot of guys who had low testosterone as a kid, low testosterone as adults. It's not changing anything like that. I probably had very high testosterone as a kid because I was a maniac, lunatic, very aggressive athlete, You would think I was on a cycle, when I was 16, I was such a maniac. So I probably had very high testosterone. I never had it checked. Who knows? I know kids, though, those kids in school that were like a little on the soft side. They were terrible athletes. Those guys probably had low testosterone. They didn't have any drive. And so when they go on a cycle now and they become bodybuilders, when they come off and they decide, all right, I'm done competing, they're going back to what they were naturally if they don't take something. So a lot of those guys have to stay on hormone replacement because they just don't. They probably never were high enough,
Yeah.
But they don't test you. They never tested kids when we were young, Nowadays they test kids to see if they have low testosterone. They just kind of lumped you with the loser group, if you didn't have testosterone when we were kids. So there's a lot more knowledge today about this stuff, and I think that that's good. But one point I wanted to make was that when people are getting into bodybuilding, I never had a viewpoint of myself when I started that I have to look like Lee Haney. I set my sights lower. I said, I want to look like Stallone in Rambo, that kind of thing, Rocky. That was a more realistic goal for me. And then when I got to that point, then I said, I want to look like, I don't know who the next guy was. I always had someone like a physique in my mind that was attainable. And so I knew that it was going to take steps to get where I wanted to. I knew that even at 240 pounds, I looked good, better than the average person. I had muscle, I was lean, but I wasn't ready to win a bodybuilding show, not a national level show for sure. So I wasn't delusional. I loved the process of watching myself transform. As long as I saw that I was making progress in the positive direction, gaining muscle, gaining strength in the gym, that was enough of a reinforcement for me. I didn't have to say to myself, I got to be Dorian Yates tomorrow. So Dorian must be taking 8 IUs a day of GH. I'll take 16. I never had that mentality. I knew it was going to take time, and I was willing to put the time in. I didn't feel like I had to go and try to do, I knew there was no secrets, in other words, that I didn't know about. And I just was confident in the process that if I continued to make I kept saying to myself, I'm gaining, this many pounds every so many weeks. I'm getting stronger. It's just a matter of time. If it keeps going, I'm going to grow. I always tell people, don't look at saying you want to gain 20 pounds of muscle. If you gain a quarter of a pound of muscle every single week for a whole year, that's 20 pounds of muscle in the year. That should be your goal. Go for that quarter of a pound. If you screw up 1 week out of the year, you lost a quarter of a pound. And I didn't want to lose anything. And that's how I looked at it. Every day had to count for me because I knew that I needed to make that quarter of a pound weight gain, a muscle gain every single week.
So for individuals who have already decided, okay, I'm going to take the leap, I'm going to start doing this. The reason why I was so surprised as you were talking about this stuff initially is because every time we have a guest that comes on and talks about this shit, it's just complicated. Like there's a lot of moving parts. Like when you talk about experimenting with shit, like you are experimenting with substances in your body, that shit just it's scary, right? But you were smart. So you kind of were very in tune with what to look like in terms of what to look for in terms of how you feel, all these variables you were taking account for. Most people aren't, right? So if an individual does decide to make this leap, and a lot of people, it makes you feel on top of the world. What are some things that they need to avoid so they just don't go too far into the danger zone? Like, how can they avoid getting there?
Right. Well, another thing that also had a really big advantage was that there was a doctor, he was a dermatologist at my gym up in Westchester. I was going to medical school at the time, and he had graduated from the same medical school 20 years earlier, and he was obsessed with bodybuilding. This guy, he has to work backstage at all the IFBB Pro shows, Night of Champions, as the doctor back there, and we hit it off. We immediately hit it off, and I remember asking because I hadn't taken any steroids. I said, Dr. Mike, I said, hey, what do you feel about steroids? This is when I only had known him for like a couple of weeks, and I knew he was doing steroids. People told me, but I wanted to get his opinion. He's like, I'd rather see my kids take steroids than drink alcohol. The alcohol is worse for them than toxic to their liver. And so that's all I had to do was hear that. And then, so I had kind of had a mentor. I had someone I could bounce ideas off because he was a genius. This guy, when I would go over like what I did in medical school that day, he remembered. Like he had a photographic memory. He would remember. Oh, I remember that. And he would go over. We would review it. And we used to hang out at the gym. He had the key to his gym in Westchester. I used to go there at like midnight and stay there till 2 a.m. with him. And all we would do is talk about anabolics and bodybuilding and science of bodybuilding and, theories of, all this stuff. So I had someone who was kind of like, who can answer my questions. And at the same time, help me synthesize my own ideas and theories. And at least if he says it made sense logically, the ideas I came up with, then I knew they were sound, and I think that's something that a lot of people don't have now. A lot of people use me for that type. A lot of people will ask me theoretical questions and I kind of act like the old Dr. Mike acted to me. But when I started thinking about insulin and I started talking to him about it, and we kind of synthesized the ideas together, it made it a little bit more acceptable. Now, when I was trying to learn about stuff that was previously known, that was stuff I was educating myself from, like Bill Phillips and stuff like that. I always use sources that I respected. I think what the problem is, a lot of guys nowadays, they go online and the first thing they do is they Google steroid, or they, put it in Instagram, and they find these self-proclaimed bro guru, steroid experts in quotes. And they listen to these guys, and these guys are morons, most of them, and they have most of them didn't even graduate high school, and they're giving out. And really, what a lot of them are is just glamour. They're selling their own underground gear, and so they're trying to like provide a platform that they're so smart and knowledgeable about, and you should use this and this and this. And by the way, here's the link to my website. And that's dangerous. You got to use sources. There are a lot of people. I'm not the only one out there. I mean, Bill Llewellyn wrote an insane book. That Anabolics book is probably the best book out there right now. I mean, use sources, that you trust, and educate yourself and ask the right questions. And I mean, I teach a course called The Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru. I do it like 4 times a year. Used to be in person because I felt it was a better in-person course, but because of COVID, I put it online. And I always have 25 people every time I hold that course online. We're going to probably be doing it, I think, the first week in June again. And I go over everything from diet, nutrition, drugs. I teach people how to be real diet gurus. I actually have broken it down and made a curriculum out of it. My dad was a teacher. I remember his curriculums I used to read when I was, I used to see them as a kid. I created a curriculum and a workbook, which has kind of become almost a textbook. And people could use this as a template to actually be their own coach and be and understand the science of how these things work. And when you educate yourself and create and have knowledge that you can trust, you feel empowered. Mm-hmm. When you're making up things or repeating things that you're hearing online and acting like your own guru because, this guy said this and this guy said that, nothing is clarified in your brain and you have too many conflicting things going on, and you're never going to be a good coach. And you know what? You're not going to do yourself any good service because you're not really understanding what's going on in your body from a scientific and chemical standpoint. And I can't stress enough the education part of this curve. And you should be doing, like you said, the education prior to taking the steroids, not while you're on the steroids and having problems.
What were your thoughts when you saw Bigger, Stronger, Faster years ago?
I loved it. I'll tell you why. Mostly because it was finally someone did something that actually showed our side, the bodybuilder side of things. It's funny because bodybuilders don't get any credit. Think about it. The nutritional practices, the supplement practices, and even the hormone practices that we see today, bodybuilders were doing this 25 years ago. Bodybuilders are 25 years ahead of conventional medicine. And if it wasn't for what bodybuilders learned about about taking anabolics and testosterone replacement and nutritional supplements and the need for extra protein, we would never have the knowledge we do today. So you guys exposed that, and you also exposed it in the film, the idea that, even though people are using them and not telling anyone, they're not that bad for you if you do them the right way. And it's like, I breed snakes, boa constrictors, and all kinds of pythons and stuff like that. And everyone thinks that if you have a snake, it's going to kill you, right? It's this deadly creature. They're like dogs, once they're bred in captivity, most of them, 99% of them are not venomous. No one keeps venomous snakes. Only the lunatics keep venomous snakes. The people that are really, really expert keepers. Those people keeping snakes that if you get bit by them, you get 2 puncture marks on your arm. You're not dying from it. So because there's an ignorance level there, people assume snakes are bad, and that's what it is. It's like steroids. People think all steroids are bad. Matter of fact, on all the packaging, if you read any anabolics, well, nowadays everything's underground, but back in the day when you would buy something from the pharmacy or you get something from overseas pharmacy, all the package inserts said the same thing. They all had the exact same side effects: liver tumors and cancer and all these side. But yet every anabolic doesn't cause all that. They just lumped it all together. Like every steroid is just as dangerous. Like Anavar, which is like taking M&Ms, is just as toxic as Anadrol. And that's just not the case, obviously.
That's amazing. So we've been hanging out with Andrei Milanichev for the last week and a half, one of the greatest powerlifters of all time. He blew our minds. He had said something for powerlifters along the lines of, don't worry about hitting 3 reps or less unless you've put in about 3 years of hard work and training and, in the gym powerlifting. So basically, unless you put in the time, don't even worry about competing right now. Do you have any similar advice for bodybuilders? Somebody that might be, I don't know, the weekend warrior, we'll say, and then eventually wow, actually I'm making some progress. I might be interested in hopping on stage, but I don't know when that time is. Do you have something similar for someone like that?
I think that I think competition is great, and I'll tell you why. Because when I first started competing, I wasn't on any delusions that I was going to nationals. I was just trying to compete to see what I looked like, to validate what I was doing in the gym was actually good, and that I loved the whole idea of the whole diet down, put the tan and the oil on, get on stage with the other guys and compete. Because I was an athlete. So. I think it's good because I think people get burnt. You can't have people do the same thing over and over. You get burnt and you hit plateaus. So you can't be forever gaining muscle. At some point you got stagnant, you hit a plateau. That's why it's good, I think, at least every year, maybe every 18 months to try to diet down and get on stage. Number one, it gives you stage. If you want to do this for a career or for a long time, you got to have stage experience. You can't just wait until you're ready to turn pro and then get on stage, because you're going to look like a bumbling idiot up there. These early shows where you make your mistakes and you learn and you get through the learning curve is invaluable. Okay, because you learn how your body responds to carbohydrates and carving up and water depletion and all the things that go along with contest prep. Also, when you diet down and you get lean and then you start eating again, you get this like anabolic rebound effect. We all know. Number one, your appetite goes through the roof. Number two, your body just wants to build muscle after you've been basically starving the body for 4 months getting ready for a show. So I think this, and this is probably in powerlifting too. Cycling your training and your diet and everything like that is super important to keep the body guessing and to keep gains coming. So I found that by competing every year, or even every like I said 18 months, I found that I made better progress than when I would not compete, so to speak. Because I think what happens is people lose focus. I'm going to wait 5 years before I get on stage again. Before they know it, 4 years is gone. They gained 5 pounds of muscle, and then. And they really didn't make the progress they wanted because they were unfocused, because they said, I got so much time. So what if I miss 2 weeks here and a week there? I got to go on vacation and my friends are going out to the club. I treated it like, man, I got the Olympia coming up every single year and I got to be ready for it. So I only have so much time to put muscle on. I got so much time to diet. And then after the diet, it's right back in the gym again, because I got to get ready for the following year. And if you want to do this competitively and be great at it and make awesome progress, that's how you have to think. So I never tell anyone you shouldn't compete because you're not ready yet, because you know what? Who knows? Let's see what you look like on stage. Oh, great. You know what? We need to work your legs. Now you need to put size on your back. It's impossible to get an assessment when you're in off-season shape of what you really need to work on until you strip everything off, all that body fat, and get on that stage and compete. And I think that that's important from a competitive standpoint. If you want to go to an elite level, you got to make those steps. Also, I work with a lot of people who just are late. They're like, I'm so out of shape, Dave. I don't know what to do. I'm undirected. You know what? Let's get you ready for a competition, or let's get you ready for a photo shoot. But you got to treat this like it's the Olympia. And you know what? Guys and girls too, I get such great results when they have that mindset. This is the most important thing in my life, this competition that I'm going in, even though it's the Mr. Kentucky, whatever, or Mr. Backstreet Gym, show. It's important to that person because they're making it important, and they learn the discipline it's going to take to get to the best that they are, to make themselves look like, hey, I'm Mr. Olympia on this stage, even though I may not have the size yet to be on Mr. Olympia.
How do you help individuals? Because a lot of people that compete a lot, they'll get that lean and they'll have a hard time getting rid of that physique, as in letting go of being that lean after they hit the stage. Women, men, both. How do you mentor people out of that mindset to, hey, okay, we got to put some body fat on because you need to get healthier again. And this is where you're going to be, because you're not going to hold on to that stage ready physique for long.
Yeah. I just had a discussion with someone yesterday. One of my clients was talking to me. He's from another country. And he's like, we spent way too much time, 45 minutes on the phone, talking about his cheat meal he has every week. It's such a stressful situation for him. About I want to have a whole pizza, but should I not eat the cheese? And I'm like, why don't you have 2 slices of pizza and a chicken parm or something like that? Eat some protein. It's not just a binge meal. It's, but if I eat the whole pizza, if I take the cheese off, will that be all right? I said, why would you just eat bread? I said, and I don't know why I was engaged. I should have just dismissed him right away. But for 45 minutes, I was getting stressed out. I was feeling his stress. I'm a very, I guess you could say, empathic person.
Fuck, man, you should have recorded this.
I should have. It would have been great. But I start feeling people's emotional state. And I started getting sucked into his mental, issue about this cheat meal and the stress that and the guy has no body fat on his body, and he's like, well, next time, because we just started dieting him. He's like, next time we do off season, is it possible that I can do an off season where I don't feel so full all the time? I said, I have you eating 6-7 times a day. Of course you're going to feel full. You're not fat. He goes, yeah, but my stomach feels very full. If I have to go on vacation he's worried about all the wrong things. No, you want to be a great bodybuilder, but you're worried about going on vacation once a year, and you're not gonna put on muscle adequately, and you're gonna starve yourself the whole year so you can. I said, how about schedule your vacation when you're dieting? I never thought about that. So I mean, Pete, there's a lot. Look, I work with a lot of eating disordered women too out there, and I understand that mentality because when I was a runner, I used to starve myself, and I had almost like I was bordering on the anorexic mindset too. I understand how that works, but you have to explain to people the reason you're hiring me is because you're not thinking. It's very hard to advise yourself, and you're not thinking clearly, and you're thinking in a way that's going to make you not get the progress you want. I am here to make sure that you think properly, or not even allow you to think. I'll do the thinking and tell you what to do. You'll just give me feedback on what you're doing. And that's how I walk people through it. And sometimes I got to give them the speech. Do you want to be a great bodybuilder, or do you want to be a dysfunctional human being? I don't care one way or another. I just want you to be happy as my client. If you want to diet 365 days a year and you're going to pay me for it, I'll diet you 365 days a year, but you're not going to make the progress you're telling me that you want to make. So I'm not going to let you get fat in the off season. You might get a little bloated because when you eat 8 times a day or 7 times a day, you're going to feel like there's food in your stomach all the time. And I walk them through this mental process of what they're going to feel like and why they're going to feel like it. And that it's not unique to them. Everyone goes through this. And a lot of times I get people through it. Sometimes I every once in a while, I can't succeed. Someone just can't handle it. And it's too mental for them. They don't have the mindset to be a bodybuilder because they don't understand. They can't make the mental sacrifice. And that's fine. Everyone has got different goals. But when someone comes to me and says, I want to be a great bodybuilder and I want to put muscle on and I want to compete, then I have to be tough with them. And they expect that and they respect that in the long run. And when they do make progress and they do look good, they're very happy about it. But I think people have problems. They send me these pictures on Instagram. I want to look like this guy. I'm like, do you know how much muscle that guy has on his body? I said, that guy is jacked. He's like, yeah, but he's 176. I said, he's in contest shape at 176. I said, you don't even have a fraction of that muscle in your body. I said, you don't compare yourself to other people. Let's make you the best that you can be. And then they get it a lot of times when I tell them that,
So what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes some of the newcomers make when it comes to that bulk, part of the whole bodybuilding process?
I think a lot of people think it's just a calorie thing and they start downing like lots of, high carb junky type stuff. You remember the old, Mark, you remember the old like weight gainers? Oh yeah. I forget the kind, it might've been Nature's Way. I was dating this girl. She was anorexic. She didn't have any food in her house. So when I come stay at her house, I had nothing to eat. So I used to buy these, they were called Perfect 1100. So it was 1100 calories. They were in these like little plastic things. And you just added water and you shook them up. It was it was like 50 grams of protein, but it was like 200 grams of sugar in there. Now I had a very fast metabolism and I wasn't eating because she had no food in her house. So I would literally drink 3 of these a day. It would kill my stomach, until it finally got assimilated. But I would basically shake it up and gulp it down, the whole thing down. And, if a normal person did that with a normal metabolism, they would have been a fat slob and probably just looked terrible. I was, maintaining my physique on this because my body's metabolism was so fast. But I think a lot of people drink stuff like that and they think it's equivalent to eating, 2 chicken breasts and, 2 baked potatoes and, half an avocado. And there's just no comparison to that food meal to the shake that was mostly sugar. And I think that's a huge mistake people make. So they eat the wrong type of foods. They think that they could just, Dave Palumbo eats McDonald's every day. I could eat McDonald's every day. And so they go to McDonald's every day and they become like fat slobs. And that's a big mistake. And then there's the people that are afraid to eat enough and they're too clean. They eat so clean. And I went through this when I first started, getting into bodybuilding. I didn't have a lot of money. So I was in medical school. So I was eating like tuna. I would buy these tuna cans. The albacore tuna would go on sale for 99 cents a can. I would buy 100 cans and I would eat like 4 or 5 of those a day with like white rice with soy sauce on it. That was my mixture. I would mix white rice, a can of tuna, soy sauce, mix it around and I eat it. And I would eat it all day long, the same meal. And I just couldn't grow after a while. It was too clean. There was no fat in it. I didn't realize this at the time. And I was maintaining what I had, and I was pretty damn lean, but I wasn't making progress. And so it was because I was eating too clean. So there's two extremes: the people that eat the junk food, thinking I got to just get massively big, and the people that eat so clean that they never make the progress they want because they're afraid that they're going to get fat, or they just don't know any better.
How do you personally stay lean nowadays?
I have 3 kids that I run after. Keeps me very lean.
What's your nutrition like?
I have a very I'm not eating enough probably every day to support my metabolism. I think that I have such a very fast metabolism. I could eat pretty much anything. I eat very clean, but for health purposes, because I want to stay healthy and live as long as possible. But I don't eat a lot of junk food, and the funny thing is I can eat junk food and I don't really get fat from it, but I just don't feel good on it. So I don't really eat like a lot of cookies and sweets. And I try to stay away from refined sugars as much as possible. I eat a little bit here and there, but by and far I try to eat, pretty clean foods, but it's very hard for me to get fat. So to ask me that, it's kind of a loaded question, but if you saw the way I ate, you would think that I was like on a contest diet in a sense, because I do eat clean, but I crave clean foods. I think that when you're eating clean, you crave clean foods. As soon as you start eating junkier foods, like sometimes when I would go to the Olympia, like, remember when I was in the Orleans hotel, they have like a Fuddruckers there. They had Fuddruckers, and they have like a Sparrow's pizza. And for some reason in the food court there, and that was the quickest way to eat. And we were so busy at the Olympia, so I would eat it basically Sparrow's every single meal. Pizza, slice of pizza, basically a chicken breast, like a chicken parm, not chicken parm, like a chicken cutlet with like, a plate of pasta. And I would eat that like 3 times a day because it was just quick. It was right there. I could actually work on my computer while I'm in the food court. When I got home, I almost couldn't eat my clean food anymore. It tasted like shit because I was eating Italian food every single, 3 times a day. So what happens is your body starts craving. So people who eat a lot of junk food, they crave junk food, and that's really it. Where kind of our brain gets addicted to the junk food and it wants more and more and more of it, And so I think that you got to develop good habits. I tell people that, and good habits mean getting in a routine of eating right and healthy, giving yourself the ability once a week to have that cheat meal is fine, but it's planned, And same thing with nutritional supplements. It's a pain in the ass. I got a lot of bottles of supplements. I got to constantly keep pouring out, this bottle and this bottle and this bottle. And I got to put them in plastic bags. But you know what? I do it every day and I take them religiously. Like I brush my teeth at night because I know that the positive benefits, health benefits are there. And so I make it part of my routine. And when I do that, I find that, and I'm organized, there's no guessing. And I know what the results are going to be. And I look good and I feel good. And why would I change that routine? I don't know. I think people get depressed sometimes and they start eating, junk food because they just don't want to be bothered. But if you want to look good and you want to, be healthy, okay, whether you're trying to get huge or not, you got to be organized and you have to have a game plan, whether it be, like I said, whether you're competing for the Olympia or you're a 53-year-old guy chasing 3 kids around and trying to run, 4 businesses. You got to have a game plan. You can't just wing it. If I just waited till I was hungry every day to start looking for food, I'd be eating crap all the time. I'd be eating all the junk food people send me, the samples of shit all day long,
What would you say are some, like, as far as bodybuilders specifically are concerned, what are some nutritional concepts? Because, like, you see some bodybuilders that are getting into it and they're, eating crazy amounts of carbs. They're trying to put down as much carbs as possible, 500, 600, 700. When you hear that Jay Cutler ate like 1,000 carbs a day or some shit, right? But in your opinion, like, what are some concepts that these are stuck? Like some people are like, you should always be eating something 2 hours before you work out, etc. What are just some general guidelines that you see across the board? You find that this is something that bodybuilders should be doing nutritionally.
First thing, the number one mistake people make is looking at what Jay Cutler eats and trying to emulate. Okay, because Jay was a genetic freak. I mean, from day one, if you looked at him as a teenager, before he even took any drugs, he was huge. Okay, this guy is not the guy you emulate. Okay, he's an easy gainer. He's a genetic freak. He had a ton of muscle at the peak of his career. Of course, he had to eat 1,000 grams of carbs a day. Likewise, I see guys eating 1,000 grams of carbs a day and I have them test their blood sugar and their blood sugars are running super high because you know what? Your body's pancreas cannot produce enough insulin, okay, to eat 1,000 grams of carbs a day. I hate to break it to you. Just can't do it. Doesn't have enough production. And what happened? And then you add GH on top of that, which makes you insulin resistant, and you start having problems. So I always try to tell people that there are better ways around that. No one needs 1,000 grams of carbs a day. I believe that if you substituted some of that carbs for fat, good essential fats in your diet, okay, that you can lower your carb intake and you still calorically be where you need to be, but you'd be getting a different composition, because eating too many grams of carbs will definitely give you some kind of a diabetic, state later in life, and that's not worth it. So number one, learning how to eat is important. We all know we need a lot of protein, but we also need a decent amount of fat. If you have a super fast metabolism, adding more fats to your diet will benefit you way more than just gorging on carbs all the day. Because like I said, how many grams of carbs? Carbs are only used as a fuel source. They don't build muscle. And that's a very big myth people don't understand. Carbs do not build muscle. There's no component of the muscle cell that requires carbohydrates, to build it. It's made of essentially mostly protein. And then the rest of the outside of the cell is made of a fat. Okay, that's the cell membrane. So there's no carb component. So the only thing your body is using carbs for is fuel. Okay, so how much fuel does your body actually need? In order to grow, you need a lot of protein and fat, and you need enough carbs to fuel the processes of training, thinking, whatever you do during the day. Okay, and that's it. That's what the carbs do. They fuel your movement. Now, if you don't eat enough carbs, your body will use some of that protein and fat that you're eating as a fuel source. We don't want that, especially in an off season where you're trying to make yourself bigger, okay? And you're trying to grow. So you want to eat enough. So I think that's a big mistake. People eat too many carbs. The timing of your meals is very important. This is probably the most important aspect of someone getting into bodybuilding, is learning to space your meals out. You can't save protein. Your body needs protein all day long, and there's no storage facility for protein in your body. Like there's fat cells, you store fat. There's glycogen stores, you store, carbs. You can't store protein. So if you eat protein in the morning and then you wait 5 hours, you still haven't, and you've been eating other stuff, but you haven't eaten any protein, now your body is deficient in protein. It can't adequately repair muscle because its first priority is the immune system, nails, hair, skin, protein, hormone production, and protein enzymes that it has to make. There's a lot of need for protein in the body. So if you go 5 hours and there's no storage facility and you have no protein, your body's going to break down skeletal muscle tissue, your muscle, and use those amino acids in there for what it needs. It's the equivalent of going to a desert island, being starving to death and eating your arm because you need food. I mean, yeah, you satisfied your food requirement, but now you have no arm left. Okay, so that's a big mistake. People don't space their meals equally throughout every 2-3 hours a day. They're not eating enough protein per meal, and that's the absolute number one mistake. And maybe you guys have experienced this. People come and ask you advice. Hey, I really want to put on muscle. I don't know why I can't grow. I'm like, well, what are you eating? Oh, I eat a ton of food a day. All right, let's lay it out. What do you eat for breakfast? Well, I go to the deli and I get 2 eggs on a bagel. All right, that's 12 grams of protein. Okay, you're already protein deficient. What's your next meal? Well, when I get to work, they have bagels and cream cheese. I say, all right, well, he goes, but I eat like 5 or 6 of those things. So you just got another 6 grams of protein from the cream cheese you're eating. The person it's already 1 o'clock in the afternoon and they've had 20 grams of protein. Meanwhile, their protein requirement is 200 grams for the day. So that's the number one mistake, people. Everyone thinks they eat great. Everyone thinks they eat enough, and no one has any clue because they have no organization. They don't write down what they eat, and they don't even know how much protein is in the food that they're consuming. And so that's a big mistake I think that people make.
Dave, do you think in any way your thyroid cancer was connected to the use of anabolics and how long you did them for and things like that?
This is going to sound like a real psycho answer. I wish it was. I really wish it was, because if I self-induced it, I'd be much more comfortable with that because, all right, I got my thyroid out. I screwed up. All right. I don't believe that's the case. I think I have a genetic predisposition to that. I have cancer. On my mother's side of the family, everyone died of cancer, all different types. No one died of thyroid. Well, no one really dies of thyroid cancer, but luckily, very, very few people. But my mom had pancreatic cancer. My grandfather had liver cancer. My grandmother had lung cancer. The list goes on and on and on. My mother's sister had breast cancer. This cancer, and I found out, something I didn't know. Also, when you get some kind of a cancer nodule, it has the, I guess you could say whether it spreads or not, metastasizes or not, is based exclusively on family genetics. Meaning that if your family has a history of metastatic cancers, more than likely yours is going to metastasize too. It has nothing to do with size. Everyone thinks, the bigger the cancer, the more it spreads. No, that's not how it goes. So I think mine had something to do with my family history. Thank God, thank the Lord, whatever angels were watching over me, allowed me to catch it at a very small size on a routine scan, and it's gone. And I hope, this Friday I'll find out, I had my radioactive iodine. I hope it's gone forever. But I think it had nothing to do with bodybuilding. Like I said, I really wish it did. I wish I induced it, because then I at least have an explanation.
How did you catch it? Do you get tested for things regularly? Do you go to the doctor often and things like that? I'm
going to tell you that story. It's a good story, but I think the camera needs to be plugged in. Hold on one second. Nope. I'll tell you the story, even though you can't see me, because it was interesting. I have an enlarged aorta. It's called an aortic aneurysm. Don't know how it got there. Never had it when I was bodybuilding or anything like that. It somehow started about 2 years ago. I went for a cardiac CT scan, and because I wanted to see how my coronary arteries were, and the doctor called me up. He's a cardiologist friend of mine. He's like, Dave, you have nothing in your coronary arteries. They're completely open. However, we did notice that you have an enlarged aorta. I said, what does that mean? Well, if your aorta gets too big, it can break. They call it dissecting aorta, like what happened to Chris Dim, and you could die, from that. So we keep an eye on it. So I went to a cardiac thoracic surgeon. They said, all right, once a year, we're going to send you for a cardiac CT scan of your aorta to see if it's gotten larger in size. If it gets too large, they have to operate and repair it, which is not a great procedure. Luckily, mine has not gotten bigger. I went this year for my second year in a row. They scanned it. They said, it's fine. As a matter of fact, it got smaller somehow. Great. He's like, but you know what? I want to send you to check your aortic valve out, because sometimes the aortic valve can be damaged by an enlarged aorta. I go there. I get the scan, comes back. No, he calls me up. He's like, it's fine. Your aortic valve is fine. I said, where's the results? So, they send you have my chart. I go on there because I want to read my labs and everything. And I'm reading the thing and I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, my everything is normal. And then I noticed at the very end, they say, thyroid nodule. So I call up the guy. I said, what's with this thyroid? And I was like, everyone has nodules. I wouldn't worry about it. Very small. I said, send me for an ultrasound, because I know my family history of cancer, right? I'm paranoid. Go for an ultrasound. Within 20 minutes, I didn't even get back to my house yet. They already had sent the results to me. Highly suspicious 1 centimeter nodule on my thyroid. Small nodule, but highly suspicious. I try to get an appointment with my endocrinologist around here. With any endocrinologist, they want me to wait 4 months. All right, I got a highly suspicious nodule on my thyroid. I'm not waiting 4 months, right? So I have a kid I grew up with, best friend in high school. We went through college together, everything like this, and he's an endocrinologist. Ironically enough, there's no coincidences, right? He's in Miami. He's like, Dave, just drive down here. I'll biopsy it. I do my own biopsies. I said, you do your own biopsies? I thought they do it in a lab. Because I do my own biopsies. Go to his office. 5 minutes it takes him. He sticks a needle in my neck, sends it out. A week later, calls me up because you have papillary thyroid cancer. He goes, I know it looked suspicious to me. That's why I told you to come to my office. So he's like, I got a very good friend who that's all he does is take out thyroid cancers. We'll take it out. It's small. It should be fun. So, of course, I'm always the exception. So I go there. They got me on the table. It should be like a 45-minute surgery. I'm on the 5.5 hours because they take out half my thyroid. They send one of my lymph nodes that is right underneath the thyroid gland for a biopsy while I'm actually under anesthesia, which was smart. It comes back that the lymph node had some cells in it. So now he's got to take the whole gland out. So he goes back and he takes the whole thyroid gland out. And closes me up. The surgery was a breeze. I was actually pumping gas right after I got out of surgery in my car. So it was not a bad surgery at all. But now what they wanted to do is when they see that it has spread a little bit, or at least chipped some cells off, they want to give you what's called radioactive iodine. And with the radioactive iodine, I got my radioactive bracelet on here. My son thinks I'm Spider-Man. The radioactive iodine will target any thyroid cells in your body, good or bad. Most of my thyroid has been removed, obviously. So if any of the cancer cells spread anywhere, it'll target those cells and basically kill them. And then on this Friday, I go tomorrow, they'll scan my whole body and they'll see where that radioactive iodine actually went, if it went anywhere, other than my neck area. And hopefully that's it. Hopefully I'm done. Hopefully it killed everything that was left, and I'm done with it. But think about it. If I didn't follow up, and now I'm doing research, and I'm finding that like 1 out of every 10 people has like thyroid cancer potentially. So I don't know why they don't do routine screenings. It's literally a 5-minute ultrasound on your neck, and so I send my solicitors. I don't know if you're interested. I tell my sister, why don't you go she's got Hashimoto's, which means that she has an autoimmune disease against her thyroid. She's on replacement. I said, why don't you get your thyroid ultrasound too? She's like, I don't know. She goes and gets it done. She calls me up. I got 4 nodules on my thyroid. And one of them, which was very, very, very much smaller than mine, so small they can't even biopsy, looked highly suspicious too, or looked suspicious too. So that's how I know it's probably genetic. So it is what it is. We all look, as you get older, shit's going to happen to you, and you can either let it drive you insane and become, suicidal about it, or you can just deal with it and understand that when you get older, shit goes wrong and you got to deal with it. It's very important that you stay on top of your health. You get your diagnostic tests done. You get your colonoscopy when you're 50. You get your cardiac CT scan to see if your heart's good. You get your echocardiograms regularly on your heart. And, I would add thyroid scan, every 5 years just to make sure your thyroid's doing well, because the thyroid gland collects all the junk. So if you're exposed to heavy metals, radiation, everything goes right here for some reason in that gland. And that's when things go wrong. So it's a good idea to check it out.
Does this change like your diet at all, or anything in terms of your daily habits?
For 2 weeks, a week prior and a week after the radioactive iodine, I couldn't eat anything with iodine. I had to eat an iodine-free diet because they want to make sure that the radioactive iodine goes into the cells and not the regular iodine that you're consuming. So I said, well, how hard could that be? So I look at the sheet they give me, and everything I eat has iodine in it. Fish, whole eggs, egg yolks have a lot of iodine in them. Certain vegetables, it's like they basically gave me the list of do not eat is my diet, basically. I had to stop all my nutritional supplements because my demineralized formula that I produce has sea kelp in there, which is iodine, because most people don't get enough iodine in their diet. And so I, fortify my vitamins with that. So I had to basically stop everything that I normally do. My whole routine is completely changed. I'm eating red meat and I'm eating chicken every meal. And I have to switch to sea salt, because I got to make sure that there's no iodine in what I'm consuming. But that's it. Once this week is over, then I can go back to eating anything I want.
Gotcha.
Does this alter like your metabolism? You mentioned having a fast metabolism. I always kind of thought the thyroid kind of regulates a lot of that.
Now that's a very good question, Mark. And I've answered this on my Ask Dave show, but it warrants repeating. People think that how fast your metabolism and how well you burn fat is completely related to your thyroid gland. And I'm telling you it's not. I'm going to give you an analogy. Your thyroid should be optimal. In other words, you should have good T3, free T3 output, okay, because the free T3 is your active thyroid hormone, in order for your body to work. But how much fat you burn and how fast your metabolism is really related to the machinery that you got doing the burning. So if you have a lot of muscle on your body, you have muscle that's very metabolically active with a lot of mitochondria, okay? I'm a fat burning machine, right? We talked about this earlier. All my thyroid gland does is regulate the thermostat, okay? Once the thermostat is set right, my body goes to work and burns fat. If you don't have a lot of muscle, you have a slow, poor, your muscle works poorly. It doesn't really burn a lot of fat. You tend to get fat really easily. Even if you set the thermostat on high, you're still not going to burn as much fat as someone like me. So my metabolic rate has not changed at all. I feel exactly the same on the replacement dose than I did on my normal thyroid. My thyroid wasn't high, my gland. I had normal output my whole life. But the machinery that I have that's actually doing the fat burning in my body is what's supercharged. And I think that's an important distinction. That's why you can give, I've worked with women where I work them up to, 75 micrograms of Cytomel a day, which is T3, pure T3, and they're still not burning any fat. Why? Well, they don't have that much muscle. They don't have a good metabolism to begin with. And when I say metabolism, I mean the machinery that burns the fat, the actual mitochondria that oxidize the fatty acids. It's just not that efficient. So it doesn't matter. That's why if one person takes 50 micrograms of Cytomel and you give the same person, another person 50 micrograms of Cytomel, they don't burn fat at the same level because their bodies are different. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
sure does.
What's like now that you're 53, what's your process or what's your thought process in terms of longevity? Like, what do you do as far as like after all this process and you go back to your normal nutrition? What does your process look for, like your nutrition, your exercise, your supplementation to have a really good quality of life for as long as you can?
Yeah, I think blood sugar control is very important. For a while, I was a neurotic because for some reason, my wife got pregnant and she got gestational diabetes and her blood sugars were running high and she was showing me on the blood sugar monitor. And this is before I ever even used the blood sugar monitor. Like, let me check my blood sugar. Check my blood sugar. It was high. Not like crazy high, but high. Look, what the fuck's going on? I don't know if I had sympathetic, blood sugar issues because she had them or what. So I stopped eating, I started lowering my carb intake. I was like, what the hell's going on here? And I actually even documented this. And I did 3 months of a long acting insulin, like a Lantus insulin, to kind of give my pancreas a rest and let the beta cells, because they've shown that if you rest the beta cells, they'll regenerate themselves. And after I did that, I did notice my blood sugars have been almost perfect since then. Now, during this time, I also was going through my shoulder replacements and I wasn't working out. So I don't know if the fact that I wasn't working, working out sensitizes your insulin receptors. So going back to working out also definitely improved my blood sugars. But that's important because the worst thing that can happen is if you have poor blood sugar control, it can lead to dementia. It could lead to, you losing limbs, fingers, toes. Because what happens is if there's too much sugar in the blood, it accumulates in the microcirculation of the extremities, your eyes, and your brain is also considered something that where sugar can accumulate. And that's why they think that there's like a diabetes that can cause dementia. So blood sugar control, very important. Blood pressure control, very important. I take an ACE inhibitor. I've been taking it for 15 or maybe almost 20 years now to keep my blood sugar in normal range. And I've tried to go off of it and it goes up a little bit. And I think what happens is as we get a little older, our blood vessels lose that elasticity and that ability to open and close, dilate as easily. So they get a little stiffer. So sometimes your blood pressures can go up because of that, because they can't accommodate that as well. Because it's funny, when I was 300 pounds, I never had high blood pressure. And then when I switched, when I got older and I got off all the anabolics, now I have high blood pressure. So I control that with an ACE inhibitor. So blood sugar, blood pressure, and then of course, keeping body fat good, and then getting your diagnostic, making sure your heart, blood vessels, those coronary arteries are open. You don't have blockages there. Nowadays, you don't need to get an angiogram. You can get a cardiac CT scan. They could even do a cardiac CT, what's called calcium score, to see if you have any calcium deposit in your vessels. Luckily, I have zero, but that's something that I've seen a lot of people have. Mel Chansey is a good friend of mine. He went and I made him go get a cardiac CT scan. A lot of people had told him that, but I had, told him there was a place right over here because he lives about 20 minutes from me. And he found out he had a blockage in his coronary artery. He had to get a stent put in. Had he not gone though, who knows? He would have died of a heart attack maybe. I mean, that's how his dad died. So you got to be on top of this stuff. This is stuff that's easy. And you know what? You're crazy. I know it's a pain in the ass because you got to do the whole prep for it. Get a colonoscopy, just to make sure you don't have any polyps in there or any kind of colon cancer. And, I went and did that when I was just this past year. And I was happy to report that the doctor told me I had the cleanest colon he'd seen in 20 years.
Congratulations.
So I attribute that to my I don't have a bottle of it. I attribute that to my Fiberlife product, but using regular fiber supplement is important. So these are things that I do. Look, you can go crazy. Like I take a lot of different supplements that I cycle on and off, stuff that's supposed to help with, brain function and keeping, your memory good. Cause I don't know if as I've gotten older, I forget things a lot more. I don't know if it has anything to do with that. They call it senior moments. I don't know. I could just be very busy. I don't know what it is, but my memory is not as good as it used to be. That's for sure. That's one thing I do notice as I've gotten a little older, but I am very distracted and pulled in a million directions. So you can only do so much, but I think those are the main things: blood pressure, blood sugar, heart health, colon. And now, you might want to check your thyroid out too. I would add that to the list.
How have you been able to turn this new chapter of your life, turn away from bodybuilding and turn away from being the big guy and all those different things?
I'm always a believer in recreating yourself. So once I proved that I could be the biggest guy already and the freakiest guy out there, I didn't really have anything to prove anymore. So it wasn't like I had unfinished business, like some people I think they're always chasing that one thing they think they didn't accomplish and they want to accomplish. And so I'm of the idea that I give 100% to whatever I put my mind to, and I try to become the best at it, at least in my mind. And then once I'm satisfied that I've gotten there, if it doesn't interest me anymore, it doesn't serve me to interest me anymore. In other words, I'm at a point where, if I continue to try to be 300 pounds, I'm probably going to die young. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have a family. So I recreated myself. I said, all right, this is how I want to look now. I want to downsize to this size. I want to look like this. And it wasn't initially 190. It was originally 230. I wanted to go down to just a good muscle, but not where I'm huffing and puffing all day long. And then I kept progressively getting smaller. So I kept recreating my mind how I wanted to look. And once I decided that I don't want to be that big guy anymore, I don't care if people think that I'm not big anymore, because it doesn't matter, because I got nothing to prove anymore. I already proved it. I got the pictures to show it, that I was able to accomplish that. So if I'm going to talk about how to get big and how to eat big and how to eat right and how to get lean, I got the pictures to prove that I've already done it. I don't need to constantly keep reiterating. Now, if I turned into a fat slob and was out of shape right now and I was giving diet advice, I might look like a hypocrite, right? So that's why and that's one of the reasons why I stay lean and look good, because if I'm going to give advice, I got to at least look like I know what I'm talking about. I don't need to be 300 pounds to do that, but I can at least show people, look, hey, this is a life choice to look good and to be healthy. Okay. And you got to be willing to, find things that you like and enjoy and are passionate about in your life and go after those things. Okay. After you've done with bodybuilding. And that's what I did. I started my own nutrition company. I started RX Muscle, my own media website to cover the sport that I love, be able to educate people, be able to analyze the shows, to do a podcast. I have the Heavy Muscle Radio podcast that's been going, I think, longer than anything else out there. That's something that I'm passionate about. And so I poured my energy into that and being the best that I can be at that. And now, just recently I got into breeding within the last 6 years, reptiles. And I'm super crazy passionate about that because it's an artistic outlet for me. I'm an artist also, I think we're all artists at some degree. Anyone who creates stuff is an artist. And my palette, rather than my markers or my paints, are, creating different colored snakes. And so I'm always involved in something creative. I find that if you have a creative outlet, you don't get bored and you don't sit around and want to do drugs and do destructive things to yourself. And so I keep myself well distracted doing things that that I am excited about.
By the way, do you sell said snakes?
I do.
Do you have a website for it?
Maybe if you're in the market for a pet snake, let me know.
I'm very curious.
That's some cool stuff.
So I had a question. I was curious about your shoulders. You said you got both of them replaced?
Both replaced, yeah. When I went to the surgeon, he said to me, he goes, "You probably should have had these replaced 15 years ago." I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "But he's like, it's a good thing you waited." He goes, "Because the replacements 15 years ago sucked." He said, "They didn't last. They were terrible." The guy who actually replaced my shoulders, Dr. Frankel, invented the reverse shoulder replacement, believe it or not. And when I went to him, he was in Tampa. He was referred to me. I was a referral. He's a bodybuilder himself. And so I'm talking to him. I'm like, someone was mentioning a guy by the name of Matson this Dr. Matson in Seattle. He's like, "Yeah, he's the best." He's like, he's the Arnold Schwarzenegger of shoulder surgeons, shoulder replacement surgeons. He goes, "But I'm like Lee Haney." I said, "I'll take Lee Haney. Lee Haney's good enough for me." He's really good, this guy. it was the easiest surgeries I ever had, because it really was not painful for me. And I know some people find that they're painful, but this guy didn't believe in physical therapy. He says, you know what? You don't need to do anything. As a matter of fact, my wife is a physical therapist. He said, stay away from him. I don't want him doing any physical therapy. Let it heal. He goes, it's not a type of thing that needs physical therapy. You're not walking on your shoulders. And you know what? Everything he told me and walked me through every step, he was 100% right. There was a little achiness, but compared to the pain I was in before I got the surgery, it's crazy. And you know what? I have full range of motion. I can do everything. I can throw a baseball overhand, a football.
Wow.
I'm so happy with the results. I can lift better now than I did when I was competing. Okay. That's how much pain I was in. And I could do all the movements. I could hit double bicep poses. It was the best surgery I had. If anyone would ask me, hey, Dave, is it worth getting your shoulder replaced if you need it done? I would say, of all the surgeries that I've had, that's the easiest. The quad repair, that's a different story. Terrible, terrible, terrible rehab on that.
I don't remember when, but I think I seen that you had Doug Brignoli on your podcast or maybe one of your platforms. We recently just had him on, and we loved some of the information that he was giving us with the physics and all the Brig 20.
Yeah.
Some of the movements that he advises people do to get the most bang for your bodybuilding buck, we'll say. But again, like we're fans of compound movements, obviously the big three. Can you poke any holes in some of the training methods that, he advises people do as far as, for bodybuilding, of course, but, do you see anything where you can take his information and be like, that's good, but I think you should still do X, Y, and Z?
Right. Well, I mean, I've never seen a guy with enormous quads that only does sissy squats, right? I mean, the sissy squat might be the purest quad exercise that activates the quads the best. But let's face it, who's doing sissy squats with, 33-inch quads? The guys squatting 600 pounds have 33-inch quads. So, a lot of stuff science-wise in the test tube theoretically makes sense, but you can't argue with practical, results. I mean, we know what works. And that's why when I have these guys, these steroid guru guys say, I have the secret way of you're going to microdose this stuff and you're going to take it subcutaneously every single day and it's going to work better. Listen, guys have been taking steroids for 50 years. It's figured out already. Okay. We know how the stuff works. You take 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week with an anabolic and you get big. Okay. That's how it works. If you want to get big legs, if you don't squat, you're not getting huge legs. That's all there is. I don't care what the biomechanics of it are. And I love Doug. Doug's a great guy, very smart. I loved having the interview with him. But that's the bottom line. Okay. The bottom line is if you don't get on an incline bench press and bench press heavy weight, you're not going to have a big upper pecs. You're not doing flies and building big pecs. It's just not happening. So you can't argue with the practical results of what's going on, even if it can't be explained physiologically. Does that make sense?
Well, let me ask you this then. Would you say that, because the biomechanical aspect of what he's doing, it's cool. And I think it's pretty great that he's added that into a lot of people's training. Would you say that then the more beneficial thing is like, okay, you see what all these bodybuilders are doing. Let's add in these movements that apparently have biomechanical efficiency into what they're doing and marry the two. Or, what do you think about that? Do you think that's the most practical approach to take here?
Well, if that's like saying, high reps might work, but what if we take what Dorian Yates was doing and then we throw 15 more sets of high rep training in there as well? Would that make him bigger? No, it'd probably overtrain him, right? So, I mean, or how about these guys that hook on? And I'm not taking a jab at this, but I am in a sense.
Yeah.
The EMS machines that now are big. People like train with those EMS pads on them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's, I feel it so much. I've interviewed a lot of guys. I feel it. I want to work out. I was sore the next day. I'm like, yeah, but did you get any bigger from it? Probably not. Maybe you're just sore from the muscle. If I stand here and I take my cell phone and I contract my muscle, flexing this cell phone for 20 minutes straight, okay, I'm going to be sore the next day. Is my bicep going to grow bigger because of that? Probably not. But right? Soreness doesn't mean that you're getting bigger. It just means you did something that you're not used to doing, and it's sore, the muscle, because of that. If I go run 10 miles, which I can't do, but if I did it, I'd be super sore the next day. It doesn't mean I'm going to make progress as far as a bodybuilder goes in the right direction. So, you don't, if you know what works, okay, do you think you can make Big Ramy any bigger because he's going to put the EMS pads on, or he's going to do any more of those little, Doug Rignoli, exercises? Probably not, because what he's doing is maximizing already what his muscle hypertrophy, curve. It's like, I always tell people say, if I take HCG in addition to my cycle, will I grow better? I said, well, if I give you a handful of sand to throw it on the beach, is there more sand on the beach? Yeah, but can you even notice it? No, of course not.
Yeah, I think we have a tendency to extract stuff and then to apply it like literally, and to think that that's the way. When it comes to investigating like what muscles activated on a particular exercise and studying it. I mean, it's really hard to learn much of anything from studies. Who are you studying? How long has this person been training? Doug would say that you're getting kind of 30% quad activation during a squat. But is that someone that knows how to flex their quads? Is that from a professional bodybuilder? Is that, or is that just some guy that, is just learning how to squat and he kind of leans forward a lot in the squat? I mean, your form, your technique. I mean, there's so many factors that really play into it.
Is that 30% of that 600-pound squat? Maybe that's enough to grow the legs the way you need to,
right?
Because you can't even get close to that 30% of 600-pound squat when you're doing, a sissy squat per se.
Right. And then also you're working the whole body. So there's nothing wrong with, it's great that your entire body's working during a squat. I think that's good information, but we know that, we know a lot of these things. I think, again, having Andrei Milanichev here and in having guys like Jay Cutler and people we've had over the years, it's almost like disheartening in a way, because they're so simple with the information that they give you. You're like, damn it, I fell for it again. I fell for this new
like
thing.
The Yogi Berra, simple wisdom.
Oh my God! Every time, Jay says, "Don't be fancy, be consistent." And
right,
Andrei Milanichev said, "Think less." He said it over and over and over and over again. So if I'm asking you, hey, what's better, a hack squat, or they have this new hack squat that's on this different angle, or should I be leg pressing? You'd be like, hey, just stop being an idiot. Go in there and fucking train. Go lift.
Squat. Squatting builds legs. That's all there is to it. You're not going to build legs on a leg press or a hack squat. I mean, that's my answer usually to that question. Squat, and then if you want to do as the second movement, hack squat or leg press, go for it. But the bottom line, my friend Jerry Scalisi said it best years ago. He's like, you know what? Go in the gym and do 10 sets of squats and go home. You want big legs. You do that every week for 2 years, you're going to get big legs. You don't even need to do anything else.
But that's too hard.
He's right.
Going to walk around like you just got off a horse for a week.
But that's it. Think about it. If you only had to do 10 sets of squats and then go home, people would think I'm not doing enough. I got to do more. But you know what? You'll have amazing quad development and amazing hamstring and glute development if you do that.
Where can people find out more about you, and where can they find your supplements?
Speciesnutrition.com is the supplement line. rxmuscle.com would be our bodybuilding media website. And obviously go subscribe to the RX Muscle YouTube channel. We got, Instagram, the official _RxMuscle. I got my Dave Palumbo Instagram at Huge285. And if you like to follow my snake business, that's Palumbo's Pythons on Instagram.
How long have you had Species Nutrition for?
I was trying to figure that the other day, and I'm like, I started in like 07, 08, around there. So it's been like almost 14 years now. It's always been something. It was a labor of love initially, and it's been something I've constantly just built consistently, and it's very soft. We have our customer retention and like the repeat customers are really, really high. So once we get a new customer, we keep them because the quality of the products are really high. We're a little more expensive than maybe your bargain, brands you get out there. But, I'm a big believer in the quality of supplements, and that's more important. Full transparency on the bottles. I don't put any proprietary formulas. And that's always been my thing. And I'm always available to defend the products as being the best out there, because I make them that way. I'm kind of stupid in a way with the nutrition supplements. I made a product line that was the highest quality, most absorbable forms of all the ingredients out there with effective dosages. I put the product out first, and then I worried about whatever the profit margin was going to be afterwards, which is not the right way to run a business, but it's the right way to have a good supplement line. So I'm really comfortable with the line. Even if I make a little less profit on the line than some of these companies, it doesn't matter to me because I feel like, I'm putting out good products that I actually use myself, which was very important because I can't tell you how many guys rep product lines out there and then they buy my products or their wives buy my products for them because, they know that my stuff is better than the stuff they're being paid to endorse. And that I puts a smile on my face when I see that. I say, I did something right. That's important to me.
You guys go a little bit more off of like word of mouth, or do you spend some money on Facebook advertising and things like that?
We do very little advertising. My advertising is basically my number one RX muscle, obviously, would be probably the prime way I educate people through there and the science of the products. I also, I have a lot of word of mouth because I have a lot of nutrition clients myself that are on the products that then spread the word through that. We don't do a lot of advertising, believe it or not. The people who use the product are sometimes our best advertisers because a lot of coaches have the product line in their arsenal that they recommend to their clients. And even if they don't recommend the entire line, I can't tell you how many people use our fiber supplement. I mean, there's probably most of the industry uses Fiberlize. Even the people that hate me use the Fiberlize because they know it works. You know what I mean? It's funny because may he rest in peace. Luke Sando he loved the Fiberlize. I mean, he even said it on a podcast. I mean, he could not, if he ran out, he lost his mind. I mean, Guy Cisternino, same way. These are just guys that understand how good this product is. And so that makes me feel good. It makes me feel good when an entire industry can say, hey, you know what? That product that Dave Palumbo makes is the best. And so that's validating me in a sense too. And maybe my ego a little bit.
A great way to get new customers is to spend more money on advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah, give it a shot. It works really well. It's important that you have a good company that you work with or have someone that handles it, because you don't want to get swindled, out of money. But I would advise you look into it a little bit more. It can be really, really helpful to helping you gain new customers. And if you have good customer retention, those two will work really well for you.
We do the ad roll. I don't know if you do ad roll. We do ad roll, that's about the only place we really spend our advertising on, which is we get pretty decent return on that. But if you have any ideas, shoot me a text afterwards. I'd definitely be open to listening.
Hell yeah. Great to have you on the show.
I'm always learning. I'm always learning. I always tell people.
Thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys. Great interview. I had fun with the interview today. So that's how I know it was a good interview.
Awesome. Yeah, Take care.
We'll catch you later.
See you later.
Damn. Yo. We got through some good stuff there.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful to be in this position that I'm in right now, to be on this podcast.
Just be getting that wisdom from people.
Dude, so many. I love that, dude. Dude, Dave Palumbo, that's fucking amazing.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at the Brignoli thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, I just thought that was funny. I was trying to see, can I bring this? Can I marry these two? He's like, no. he just killed it.
Yeah, he did.
So
he did.
I mean, I don't think this would be possible, but it'd be sick to get both of them on, to debate, training methods and stuff. I don't know. I think that'd be sick. They are friends, and he didn't say anything bad. And I'm still going to do Doug Brignoli movements. I'm still going to, read the book. I'm not all in, but I'm all in, you know what I mean? But I'm still going to, I love hearing a different point of view from somebody who very obviously has the track record, Yeah.
It's hard the problem is it's hard to know. Like he said, no one's really gotten big off sissy squats, but who's tried it? There's people with huge legs that you ask them hey, what have you done? And they're like, I played rugby. Now not every rugby player has huge legs. So that would start to lead you to believe that the way that you do stuff matters a lot. Your genetic potential matters a lot. Maybe everyone in that whole person's family has fairly large legs, or maybe just due to their height or whatever. But we see people squat with, I think it's pretty rare to see people even having similar form in squats. Like there's a way to squat, and then there's different shin lengths and quad lengths and hips and mechanics. And like, it's really rare to see people really move the same way. So I would imagine you're getting different activation from each individual person based off of their height, based off their weight, based off of how they move. I mean, there's based off their history. What he said about running, I found that to be really fascinating. That this would be good stuff for our boy Andy Galpin to dive into a little bit more. The slow twitch muscle fibers actually have they have way more potential than people originally thought. People always thought that you need like fast twitch, and that's the only thing that, that's the most important thing. And you got to be explosive, and it's a way to be strong, and it's also a way to be big, because those explosive fibers have the most tendency to grow the most. But now there's a lot of other information saying, hey, like maybe what we originally thought wasn't true. And when we see soccer players like Nsima and Stan Efferding and a few other people that have had backgrounds like that get real big, it does make you wonder. You're like, man, maybe having that capacity was really beneficial.
So I was smiling when Dave was talking about that. I'm like, I just got my ammo.
Yeah.
But
even right here, you still look big.
Yeah, I think I was like, I was 16 there.
But you're not like, monster, like you are now.
Yeah, but I mean,
190?
Yeah, around there. Because by college, I was 210. So this was close to before college. Yeah, when I started playing again.
Sorry, that was the only, I went all the way back in your Instagram feed, and your first pictures, you insanely shredded.
Yeah, that was my first bodybuilding show there. But I really, that's why when we were talking about like the training thing, when we were talking to Doug, I was trying to get Doug to see if like, okay, well, how can we marry compound movements back into this? And he was very into like bringing only 20. And then Dave was like, so I just think like it is interesting though what you said there, because when you do look at like a lot of athletes that, let's say that they have built really big quads or whatever, right? You can't necessarily know if they have just the potential to have really big quads, and because everybody squats, they just do a lot of squatting and hack squatting, etc. But if they did add in sissy squats, would they have been able to achieve a different type of level? So that's why I just think it's worth, I mean, Dave was saying when I asked about marrying the two, he was like, well, if you add 15 extra sets, you're going to overtrain. Well, we can take away sets of other stuff and then add some of this stuff in to take some of that volume. So you're still doing a good amount of volume, but you're now not overtraining. And we could get that potential benefit of the biomechanical side while also getting the benefit of what a lot of people generally do to gain muscle in these areas.
My philosophy on training is to figure out how to get more out of less, mainly just due to my current goals. Like that wasn't always my goal, but I think that, I mean, I always before that, I always wanted to try to get just the most I could get, period, with probably the minimal amount of effort. But the difference now is like, I like to kind of pre-fatigue a muscle going into something, because like, I love squats, but like I don't want to have to squat like anything really all that heavy. I just want to move around a weight that feels good, where I feel like I'm moving well. Hips don't hurt, knees don't hurt. There's no pain, just some blood flowing into the quads, and just me kind of, praying that I make it back into the rack or whatever. That kind of stuff. I'd rather aim for that rather than like having the weight, crush my spine type of thing. But that's kind of my own. But, I think you can use a lot of this information to keep yourself really healthy. If you understand that, when you are trying to build big quads, if that's the main goal, and you're trying to really tap into, just focusing in on the quads, and you have a bad back, well, it would be great if you had this information, because now maybe there's some other options. And who's to say, like, who really knows? Like, it's hard for anyone to really know. Could you, walk with the sled backwards for 15 minutes or 10 minutes, let's say, before a workout? Your legs will be smoked. Yeah. But then the workout that you have is going to be great. You'll have a great pump the whole time. Someone else might say, hey, that's not optimal, because then you can't use the right stimulus and things of that nature. But I just think that maybe a lot of people have tried a lot of different things, but I just don't think there's any real way to truly know when it comes to that kind of stuff.
That's why when I hear like when people say, oh, it's tried and true, like just because something is tried and true and it has worked for many people doesn't mean that there is not another way or potentially a way that might be a little bit better to do it. Just because we've been doing something for so long doesn't mean that we can't adjust, doesn't mean that there's no other way, or else nutrition, people wouldn't be doing a lot of things that they're doing as far as nutrition nowadays because there's just a certain way that it's been being done.
Yeah,
it's been done.
I mean, I know he's old school, but it still like freaks me out when an old school like bodybuilder type of person talks about the meal timing and how important it is. Cause I'm like, he probably hates fasting. Oh no, he's talking about how there's no protein in my system. Like he's talking directly to me. I need to eat right now. Like I literally almost got up and got a protein shake. But yeah, it's he didn't say anything about fasting. I wanted to ask him, but the conversation kind of left that. But yeah, I don't know, the meal timing stuff, it makes a lot of sense. But what you said just now, but it's tried and true, doesn't mean that fasting doesn't make sense also. I mean, you know, that it doesn't work.
Yeah. It doesn't mean that you can't do fasting for bodybuilding, but I think, you know, as we were talking, we were mainly talking about bodybuilding. And so I think that that's something where he's like, you know, he probably doesn't recommend it to people. It doesn't mean you can't do it. But like you said, he's probably not a huge fan of it, but I bet you he probably utilized it a bit himself. Just out of pure convenience. That information about the protein storage is an interesting thing. But I also think there's like adaptation that you can have to your body. So let's just say that we ran a study on all three of us and we decided that we're going to do intermittent fasting for the next 3 weeks. And we did 20 hours of fasting every day. You know, maybe week 1, week 2 shows that like, yeah, we did lose muscle mass. But maybe we didn't conduct the study for long enough to kind of see, like maybe by week 3, maybe that starts to taper off. And then maybe there's a recorrecting that your body does, you know, at some other point. I mean, it seems like it definitely doesn't seem like we need protein necessarily every couple hours. I mean, I don't have like, you know, I don't know what the studies would show, but like that seems to be too fast. You know, if I ate a steak last night and it was like 100 grams of protein or something, even though I'm trying to get a certain protein requirement daily, if I went 2 days without it, I don't think it's a huge deal. Now, again, I don't know if it's the most optimal way to try to like build muscle mass, but I don't think I'm going to be losing a lot of muscle in a short period of time. So it's hard to tell with a lot of these things.
Yeah. That was really cool though. That was really interesting. And I think the thing that I still, it's crazy to wrap my head around is just how he kind of came off of everything.
Yeah.
You know, like he's not on anything at all right now. You don't see that often. And he's still in really good shape, but you just don't see people just like stop. Right. So, yeah.
He just completely shifted gears, completely went and did something totally different. We should have asked him, I guess, how long that process took. It probably took a few years, but good for him. You know, I think some people are like, oh man, you know, he looks small nowadays or whatever. And it's like, well, he just doesn't have the same goals, which I think is great. He's shifting gears and doing something different.
Yeah. And he might be smaller than he was, but he's not small by any means. No. Like, it's just funny to me what people think small is. He's not small.
He's just no longer 300 pounds.
He's no longer 300 pounds, but he's still single digit body fat at 190 pounds at 5'11". That's pretty damn impressive. Yeah. It's pretty damn impressive.
I also think when talking about nutrition, and we do talk a lot about fasting, and we promote it because we like it. It works well for us. But I also think that there is something to be said about kind of repeatedly throughout the day feeding yourself when you're a person that has struggled previously with nutrition. You're a person that's really struggled with hunger. You're a person that's really struggled with cravings. Keeping yourself, you know, I guess, satisfied throughout the day can be really important. And that is stuff that we advise all the time. We say, look, you know, maybe take the first 2 weeks and, you know, just get used to the food. You might even overeat for a little bit. And then once we get down the road a little bit longer, a little bit further, we can kind of correct and we can kind of make different decisions. But some people hear about fasting and then they fast and they get themselves so hungry that they end up overeating. And really all that we're working towards is to try to help people and figure out a way for them to have control of their diet to where they don't get into those situations where they overeat.
Absolutely. And I think, get themselves to have control over the situation. And then also just like, know when, like, it's an appropriate time to eat. You know what I mean? Like right now, I'm not going to fast today. I could definitely feel it through this podcast. Like I know I need to eat something right now. I can feel it, right? So I'm just not going to fast today. But you become more in tune to when you actually need to eat and when that's not a big deal. You could just let it pass by. It's very, very apparent. But I think if you're eating all the time, like every single day, you're not in tune with what like real hunger is like.
Yeah.
You're just used to just scarfing down food, and that in and of itself, that I don't know how long that can necessarily last.
It's interesting because people will say that I can't I can't fast like that. I don't have the ability to. And what I always tell people is even when I was at my heaviest, I was still hungry then.
Yeah.
Like like everyone experiences hunger, I think every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would imagine, right? Like even when people eat a lot of times a day, they still are hungry. You either woke up hungry or you're hungry between breakfast and lunch. Like you were hungry somewhere. So can you just kind of like lean into that a bit? I think you can.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's people out there that can't do that.
No, absolutely not.
I like that Nsima's hungry and he's going to not fast today, but he's just going to go have a tasty pastry and be like, I'm going to go lift for 4 hours and then do jujitsu. But yeah, that's all the food I'm going to eat.
Fucking hell, Tom is so funny, bro. We were having this conversation in the break room, and he's like, I never see you eat food, and I never see you work out, but for some reason you stay the same size. It's like, I fast, and I don't work out. Like,
it's the daily conversation whenever two or more of us meet inside the the break room, like to heat up food or whatever. It's always like, there's no way Nsima's natty. Like and then he never eats. Like all he does is jujitsu, and he's shredded and he's jacked and strong and handsome.
Oh God.
But Tom was like, you eat like 3 Cliff Bars and that's it.
Which is not true.
I know food. Because we don't have Cliff Bars here.
Anavar and M&Ms.
That was so funny. Anavar's like M&Ms.
He's like, Anavar's like M&Ms.
Yeah. Right. Anabolics are so complicated, man.
There's a lot to it, isn't it?
Like, how would people be doing this shit so casually? I'm just like,
don't.
Like, what?
He's like, you take growth hormone and then
you
get insulin resistance and then...
Yeah.
There's a lot to it. There can be a lot to it, but it can be really, really simple too. You can just take some testosterone and call it a day, and you don't have to really worry a ton as long as you don't take too much testosterone. That's the thing. You got to find out what's a reasonable amount for you to take. What's your goal? What are you trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Know thyself, yo. Like, I think one thing that he said that I was just like, hey, people, pay attention to this. It makes you feel really good, like you're on top of the world. And if you're someone that seeks that feeling a lot, if you're someone who gets very like addicted to that feeling, you're probably going to be someone who has the capacity to overdo things. So have people in your circle and have people around you that can call you on your shit and tell you when you need to back off, because that can get very dangerous. I feel that could get very dangerous for individuals who are just like, So just please pay attention to that shit.
This is like a debate that can go on forever about like when you should take them versus when you shouldn't take them and stuff. But I do think it's important just to see what you can do without them, not necessarily as if that's going to be the path that you continue down forever. But I think that's important just because you need to have all that shit inside you anyway. You need to have all those disciplines intact anyway. You're not going to get away with not eating properly. You're not going to get away with skipping training sessions. All those things are always going to be important. So, if you go to the gym for 2 weeks in a row and then you're out for a week and going back and forth, it's like, none of this is for you. It's not for you. Like, have some dedication, have some commitment. Once you've done that for a while, and now you are going to make an educated decision towards maybe even considering it.
Yeah. And then, like you were saying on the podcast just now, like, that's it, right? Like, you have that card one time that you can play, and then after that, there's nowhere else to go. So if the disciplines aren't there, and then you hop on, if that's gone, then, I guess there goes your motivation, because you're not going to go anywhere else but there.
Yeah, and Dave Tate's described it, and he said, like, if you are using steroids to play varsity football, he's like, you're not going to do very well in college.
Right.
If you're taking them to make the team, in college, you're probably not going to get picked as a pro. So it can bump you up a notch. You might beat out the other guy that's ahead of you because you're a little bit stronger or something, but it's not going to propel you like 3 levels forward. It's going to give you one little notch above what you got now, and that's about it. That's about all you're going to get. Take us on out of here, Andrew.
I will. DrinkLMNT.com/Power Project. Yesterday, I had an awesome opportunity to train with one of the GOATs. I trained with Mark Bell, and I was fasting the entire day.
Oh, my God.
And I got a compliment on my bicep veins, which felt amazing. And I hadn't eaten anything all day. All I had to in my body was just element electrolytes. Don't know what the hell that's all about, but hey, it made me look good, felt good, and my training went really, really well. And my lats are
getting that sodium in.
Yeah, my lats are a little sore today. But anyway, the stuff's incredible, and we highly recommend that you get the value bundle and just go ahead and load up on watermelon salt because it's going to be your favorite. Mm-hmm. That's at drinklmnt.com/Power Project. Please make sure you're following the podcast at Mark Bell's Power Project on Instagram, at MB Power Project on TikTok and Twitter. Newsletter will be going out very, very soon with some, some really good information from Mark, as well as like an exclusive thing that I just got word of that I'm going to throw in that newsletter that we can't announce just yet on air. But if you guys are on the newsletter, you'll know about it very, very soon. So make sure you guys subscribe. Links down in the description as well as the podcast show notes. My Instagram is at IamAndrewZ and Twitter at IamAndrewZ as well. And Nsima, where are you at?
And Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube, and Nsima Yin Yang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
I'm very ashy today.
Yeah.
And, I just wanted to come out and admit it. And Nsima pointed it out to me. And
can you show the camera your hand?
Correct.
So Andrew can kind of look how ashy his hands are. Like,
it really.
You need to get some lotion right there.
It offended Nsima. I think he was offended, maybe disgusted. I don't know.
I wanted to get some lotion for my car, but I didn't have any for you. So
I was hoping you would just lick me, and that would help.
Saliva.
Yeah.
Saliva actually works in getting ash off.
Can you rub like some of the fat from carnivore crisps like all over?
Oh, yeah.
Would that work? Maybe
melt down some of that fat.
Yeah, that could work.
Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.